evening, everyone. If I can call this meeting to order. This evening, ladies and gentlemen, we have two agendas we'll be following. We have the Committee of the Whole agenda, which will start us off. And as you know, a lot of the discussion does happen during Committee of the Whole. And then, of course, following that, we have our council meeting, which ratifies everything that we actually discussed in Committee of the Whole. So with that, I'm going to start off the meeting with a prayer from Councillor Yvonne Doucette, and that's going to be followed by our national anthem by Mr. Joe Longfellow. Councillor Doucette.
Au nom du Père, du Fils, Saint-Esprit, Amen. Nous voici réunis pour le bien de nos citoyens. Permets-nous de ne jamais oublier ceux qui ont perdu leur vie pour nous, qu'ils sont toujours dans nos prières. Permets-nous de faire des décisions qui vont permettre à tous nos citoyens, petits, jeunes, adultes et seniors, de bénéficier des œuvres de ce conseil de ville. Et merci au nom de tout le monde, mon Dieu. Amen.
O Canada, our home and native land, true patriot love in all thy sons command. With glowing hearts we see thee rise, the true north strong and free. From far and wide, O Canada, we stand on guard for thee. God keep our land glorious and free. O Canada, we stand on guard for thee. O Canada, we stand on guard for thee.
Joel, thank you. Well done as always.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. My pleasure as always.
And Councillor Doucette, merci. Very well done. Madam Clerk, are there any addendum items this evening?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. None for this evening.
Thank you. Members of Council, I need a motion to confirm the agenda, please. Moved by Councillor Danch, Councillor Demeray. Questions or comments? All those in favor? Opposed? That will be carried. Thank you. Members, are there any disclosures of interest this evening? Councillor Bodner.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Item 15, as I sit on a board of a corporation that may be involved with this initiative.
Thank you, Councillor. Any further disclosures? Members? With none, I'll ask if there's any items requiring separate discussion this evening. We'll start off with Councillor Kenny.
Thank you, Your Worship. Item 2 and 9.
Councillor Bodner.
Mayor, item 3.
Councillor Steele.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'll bring item 15 for the conflict and also item number 8.
Councillor Doucette.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. Item number 8 as well.
Councillor Elliott.
Item number 10, Mr. Mayor, and I was just wondering if we could ask for leave. We will have a couple of gentlemen here tonight to speak to this as well.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Doucette.
Yes, Mr. Mayor. I'm wondering if item number 8 could not go first in discussions when we get to the discussion process. There's a fair number of young people here, and because of that, I would like to try to get that one done as quickly as possible.
Great. Thank you, Councillor. Members, any further items this evening? With no further items, I'll need a motion to accept the remainder of the items. Councillor Kenny, Councillor Bodner, questions or comments? All those in favor? Opposed? That will be carried. I do have some presentations that are going to be taking place this evening, members, and I'll do them from the podium. Well, members of council, once again, it's, I guess, a time of sadness for us, but a time of joy for the person that's going to be retiring from the city of Port Colborne. Where is he? There he is, right in front of me, Bert. There you are. Come on up, Bert. Come on up. Come on up. Ladies and gentlemen, good evening. And again, as it is always a time of sadness for us when we have one of our members of our team retire, it's a time of joy for that individual because he can now move on and be free. and enjoy. Well, come on over here and stand right next to me, Bert. We are here this evening to recognize the official retirement of one of our employees, Bert Hearns. His real name's Albert Bert Hearns, but you know what? I've known Bert since what, Bert? Since we were I was that big?
Yeah, I was teaching you downstairs in the basement.
Bert used to teach me. Bert used to teach me karate. Bert's a black belt in karate. Brown belt, yeah. And he taught me as a youngster. So all those times, well, I don't think it worked. I got my butt kicked a few times, you know. So, but Bert first started here as a casual worker in the winter works department in the late 70s, and has been with us ever since. Parks Director Art Stead hired him full-time for assignment at the Teeter Kennedy Youth Arena. Then, following that, in 1987. Bert always referred, and I can attest to this because when I used to play hockey, when Bert was there, he always referred to the Teeter Kennedy Youth Arena as my arena. This is my arena. And he took very much pride in providing a level sheet of ice. Yeah, Bert always, and if it wasn't level, he'd be back out there again holding everybody up before they went on that ice to make sure that the ice was just absolutely perfect. He loved to work the 4 to 12 shift, and again, I can attest to how much he did because I was there often playing Club Frontenac, playing hockey, practicing games.
Cold showers.
In the cold showers, yeah. That's not going to happen after next year, by the way.
Yeah, I know.
It can't happen anymore. The arena's not there anymore.
No.
But in the summer months, Parks Superintendent Bob Tronsky could always count on Bert for the bulwark and the roofing jobs, as that was what Bert did before he came to the city. And in 2001, unfortunately, health issues forced Bert from the arena, and today he can now officially enjoy his retirement. I'm told he's not one to mess with, and not only am I told that, I know that firsthand, because Bert and I have had our times. Yeah. When I was a youngster, again, Bert would often come to the house. He used to play baseball with my dad, and come to the house and show us the different moves he had. And as well, if none of you know, Bert does the best impression of Wolfman Jack. Okay, he does. He absolutely does. He does the best impression of Wolfman Jack. And I remember as a kid, I used to always go up to him, Uncle Bert, can you give me the Wolfman Jack? And of course, he would always please us. But,
the Wolfman's alive.
But just one thing I have to say, though, in knowing Bert all my life, and especially as part of the city, when my dad was on council, and then myself, and I tell you, one thing Bert always brought to the job, one thing he always brought to the job was that he cared. He always cared. And to have an employee like that is second to none. I know as a business person and again, as part of the city, you can't ask for more than that. Bert jumped out of bed every morning to get to work, and quite frankly, he cared. He knew everybody that frequented, whether it was an arena, a park, any one of our city facilities. Bert knew. He knew him personally, and he truly cared. Anybody in the city knows that. Anybody that worked with Bert knew that he truly cared about his job, and he gave his all to the city of Port Colborne.
Yeah, I rode my bike all through the winter, everything.
Yeah. So it's my pleasure. Before I proceed, I do want to call Ron Hansen up here. Ron's got a few words to say as well, and I want to bring Ron up here and give him the opportunity to really expand on what Bert did for the community.
Thank you.
This will be a little shorter. I'm very pleased tonight, Bert, to have the opportunity to honor you on your retirement from the city. We've known each other for a long time.
Yeah.
Ever since you started. I was never that small.
Well, it's a little higher.
I've had the pleasure of knowing Bert all the time he's worked for the city, and I've never met a more dedicated and hardworking individual than Bert. He took, as the mayor has said, he took great pride in everything he did. When Bert was given duties, especially in the arena, he took great pride in that.
Yeah, that's my first job when I come to Port, was building that arena.
Absolutely. As everybody can see, probably, even if you don't know Bert, he's a very unique character. At one time, the city had a baseball team, a slow pitch team, and Bert and I were both on the team. But Bert was an old fastball player from many years before. He was quite a gifted ball player. Club Frontenac, and he was a very good ball player. We had some good times in those days.
Yeah, a lot of baseball.
Yeah, great times. So we know you're going to be missed, Bert, by all the staff. Anybody that's ever worked with you, we're really going to miss you in your retirement. I know you're going to enjoy it.
I miss them.
I know. So just to wrap up, just want to wish you all the best in your retirement, Bert.
Yeah.
And on behalf of the city, we'd like to offer you this token of appreciation for all the hard work you did over the years.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
You know, as is tradition in the city, we do present, and it seems so cheap. It really does. It really does. You give a plaque and a picture. For the work this guy's put into this job, I tell you, it's the very least we can say, Bert, with respect to saying thank you for everything that you've given us as a community. Whether
6 years to get on the city, but I made it. I kept fighting to get in there.
But everybody, Bert, right from the young to the young at heart, you've really affected a lot of people.
They still call me the Iceman on the streets. Yeah.
So, Bert, it's my pleasure to offer to you, in commemoration of the years of service that you've given to the city of Port Colborne, more importantly, to the citizens and the visitors of the city of Port Colborne. Presented to Bert Hearns on the occasion of your retirement and in recognition of 24 years of dedicated and outstanding service to the city of Port Colborne, on behalf of City Council, your colleagues, and all the citizens of the city of Port Colborne, the contributions your efforts have provided in our community will be everlasting.
Thank you.
So we have this for you too, Bert. And I also have a picture here for you, Bert. Okay, so I'm not sure if you want to open that up now.
No, I'll get wet.
Okay, good thinking. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring this over there for you. Come on up.
My wife will come.
And you want to get a picture, don't you? Okay.
Yeah, we're going to be 44 years pretty soon. Married.
Just put up what you have on there.
January. February 3rd. Yeah. No, tongue-tied.
Oh, Paul? Paul, come on up. I'm sorry, Paul. We have Paul Payton coming up, too.
Bert, I'm the new local president for QP Local 155, and for all your years of dedicated service, we'd like to present you with this for your retirement.
Thank you very much.
Congratulations on your
Thank you.
retirement.
How's your head, Paul?
Got a little something here.
Give me a hat.
Pretty big hat, Bert. For
They always tell me a hat
smart
before,
guy.
huh?
For anybody who's ever spent any time in the youth arena, you know it's a very cold arena to be in. Bert spent his entire career working at the youth arena, so we thought it would be fitting. We threw some money in down at the yard, the parks and the public works, and we got you a parka.
Oh, thank you.
It's a Bauer parka, and on the back we've got Teeter's number 9 and Teeter Kennedy Youth Arena alumni.
All right.
So that's something special for you to wear, Bert.
Put it back in the bag or be easier?
That's something to carry home.
Did you want to say anything, Bert?
Hey?
Want to say anything?
All I can say is thank you very much. And the Wolfman's still alive.
Bert, thank you.
Thank you.
You got that?
Yeah.
Okay. Thanks, Bert.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
One of a kind, Bert. One of a kind. Ladies and gentlemen, the next presentation I'd like to make is something I think, if not everyone in the city of Port Colborne and surrounding area, most from the city of Port Colborne and the surrounding area took part in last year, and that was the voting on the World Fishing Network to be the ultimate fishing town in Canada. Many folks throughout the community, throughout the region, as far as Michigan, from what I hear, and other parts of both Canada and some parts of the United States, really went to bat for the city of, went to poll, I guess, for the city of Port Colborne with respect to making or enabling us to win the ultimate fishing town competition. To many people of our community, when you say those words, we often think back of the late nights, the midnights, the sleepless nights in front of their computer, making sure that they got their midnight vote and 6 a.m. votes in. While many in our community were sleeping, a crew led by the members of the Port Colborne Conservation Club, Port Colborne District Conservation Club, were working extremely hard, and I say extremely hard, to try to win the grand prize of $25,000 to put towards fishing-related activities here and throughout the city of Port Colborne. In the end, after a strong finish and a strong push by Chapleau, we snagged the second place prize of $5,000. And I have to say, I think it was close to 160,000 votes that were brought to the city of Port Colborne, and I think it was about 5,000 to 7,000 more that Chapleau got. But a lot of votes and a lot of people working hard to put those votes together to, in fact, put both communities front and center when it comes to fishing. And although there was a first and a second, I think both communities proved themselves that in fact, not only did we have a great destination for fishing here in Canada, but equally as important, we had great support behind enabling us and putting that front and center throughout our country, being both great destinations for fishing. As agreed at the beginning of the contest, the city used $2,500 to build a new sun canopy for the fishing shelter over at Sugarloaf Marina, and the new sport fishing promotional material that was brought out on behalf of the city of Port Colborne to ensure that people knew exactly what we had to offer when it came to sport fishing. The balance of the $2,500 is going to the Conservation Club to support the hatchery programs and youth fishing. So it's my pleasure to introduce to you the person that was behind all of this, Mr. Chris Yelowicka, to receive the check and say a few words. Chris? And you know, this is our president. Hi, Paul. How you doing? Good to see you. And you know, I have the unit later. You can do that for the 444 next year or something. Anyways, microphone's all yours.
Well, I don't have much to say, but just thanks for everybody. Thanks for pulling together, and I don't know if we can do it again, but I don't know if anybody wants to do it again. But just thank you very much, and thank you for your support.
Great. I thought Chris was going to plug the Conservation Club, so I'm going to do it for you. You know, this guy and a lot of other guys beside him, especially throughout the past 3 to 4 years, have done a heck of a lot, not only for the city of Port Colborne through the World Fishing Network and the Ultimate Fishing Town competition, but as well what they do behind the scenes to ensure that sport fishing is front and center here in Lake Erie, but not only taking the fish out of Lake Erie, but also with the hatchery program, putting fish back into Lake Erie. And there's a great deal that the Port Colborne Conservation Club, Port Colborne and District Conservation Club, in fact, does within this community and throughout the entire region of Niagara. So, folks, although they might be behind the scenes and doing things that you might not see on an everyday basis, believe me, they're working extremely hard for the environment, for sport fishing, and in fact, a lot of different conservation initiatives do start from people like Chris and your group. So, for that, I say thank you. Keep up the great work. Well done. Okay, well, come on up, Councilor or former Councilor Gary Bruno. I didn't think you were going to give me the check.
Welcome, everybody, to my mini presentation. You're used to hearing me speak a lot, so I'll try and be brief. But I've got a few gifts for you here tonight. One is it's a pleasure to be here once a year to thank you as shareholder of Port Colborne Fiber and ultimately the City of Port Colborne to present you with your dividend check. But before doing that, I thought I'd just bring you up to date with what is going on in your company, Niagara Regional Broadband Network. First, I want to thank you on behalf of NRBN for signing up to 2 new sites that will be connected to broadband. One is the Fire Station 1, and the other one is Roselawn, which will be linked back to here. And your new phone system, provided by our contract provider Activo, will hook you up to the Voice over Internet Protocol network and provide you with some great service. So those 2 construction projects will start within the next month. They're both being designed right now. So, Mr. Mayor, here's your contracts, and construction will begin next week.
Done by?
Avertech is one of the companies that will do the underground, and I think it's called West Line is the people doing the overhead.
So the performance numbers will be divided by.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely, Mr. Mayor. I want to say, too, is you're perhaps in Niagara one of the most wired cities in connectivity. Despite the fact that we all think Kitchener and Waterloo are the hub of connectivity in Ontario, actually Niagara region stands shoulder to shoulder with them in terms of connectivity. And for Port Colborne, you as a municipality have your internet provided by us here, and now you have 2 extra sites. You're doing disaster recovery. I understand at the fire hall, so if there's a problem, it backs up there. So well done, Port Colborne, in being one of the most connected cities in Niagara, taking a leadership role. Next, I'd like to bring you up to the state of the union, your company rolling out in Niagara. Currently, we have 18 sites under construction and approximately 30 in the pipeline. We've spent approximately $600,000 in Niagara on the broadband network. And some of our biggest projects include wireless customers. So while I know the day we started this company, there were thoughts that wireless might be the end of fiber, but it is actually the other way around. We actually feed them. And finally, I want to tell you that almost all of your customers at NRBN actually come back to us and upgrade before their contract is up. So the future not only is good with the existing customer base, but it's great with the future customers. Finally, moving on to 2012 and beyond, we'll be doing a survey across Niagara on disaster recovery, a hot seat facility and data storage, video surveillance, and a Buffalo optical interface. So we're investing another $600,000 to $800,000 next year in the network. So you can rest assured that we're taking good care of that network. And finally, thank you for having the foresight and faith in NRBN. The days of much bigger dividends, I believe, are before us. Certainly in 2014, when the loan is paid off to have built the backbone, I can see these type of checks doubling and tripling on an annual basis coming here. Either that or we will sink it back into the company, giving you some added value. So it's my pleasure, Mr. Mayor, to present to you a dividend check this year for $150,000.
Thank you.
And we didn't know if all 9 of you wanted to sign it or just the mayor, so there's a token of our appreciation.
Thanks, Gary.
And thanks very much.
Thank you, Gary.
Thank you all.
Appreciate it. Thank you. Mr. Bruno. I appreciate the work that you're doing on behalf of us at NRBN, as well as ensuring that our dividend that we invested in back in the early 2000s, when the whole hydro deregulation happened, is being looked after. So with that, and some of the folks who are watching Cogeco may not understand why we just got $100 and some odd $1,000 check, because NRBN isn't something that's in front and center news every day. So I'm going to ask Mr. Heil to take the opportunity to explain exactly where this is coming from. Mr. Heil?
Your Worship, I think a few years ago, 4 municipalities of the city of Port Colborne, through a company that created called Port Colborne Fiber, as well as the Niagara Falls Hydroelectric, Niagara on the Lake Hydroelectric, and Grimsby Hydro. The 4 of them partnered and invested a sum of money into Niagara Regional Broadband, NRBN it's called, and the company contracted with basically the MUSH sector, municipalities, universities, schools, and hospitals, for fiber optic connection throughout the regional municipality of Niagara. And everybody's on board, and everybody has long-term contracts, and the revenue that's coming in to NRBN comes back to the city in the way of dividend. Now, to invest in the company to start with, the fiber company that belongs to City Council borrowed money from Port Colborne Hydro, and that's being paid back, and it's all timed, and it's coincidental with the construction of the Health and Wellness Center. So the funding that's coming in now and a good part of next year's dividend will pay off the final loan, and that's in time when the cash is needed for the construction of the Health and Wellness Center. So it's all timed to accompany that. And in 2013, late 2013, some of the dividend will be used by City Council as it determines necessary, perhaps with a grant program or with other functions and features. Council will know, and to the members of Council, in the past there has always been some of the funding used in the return on the administration charges for Port Colborne Hydro through the dividend process that were used for many capital projects. And that runs out in 2012 because the hydro essentially is finished, but it may begin in 2013 again. All coincidental and all timed with respect to the dividends coming from NRBN to Port Colborne Hydro, and ultimately back to City Council. So it is, from our perspective, it has been an exceedingly excellent investment. There are some great opportunities for the City of Port Colborne in several years to come. So the decision made in respect of the investment was just as, I'd like to, well, luckily I'm a citizen of Port Colborne and have a share in this through City Council, but if there's an opportunity, I would buy a share in a minute.
Thank you, Mr. Heil. And I have to leave off with one message, and that's not it. There's many other opportunities that we're going to look for with respect to energy and moving forward. So it's great news for the community. So with that, members, we do have one delegation this evening. We have Mr. Rick Froese from the Lorain Bay Water Quality Group regarding Lorain Bay water quality improvement. Mr. Froese, welcome. The floor is yours.
Thank you. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Rick Froese. I'm a member of the Lorain Bay Water Quality Group. There's a number of us, members of the community here this evening supporting this presentation. And we are a concerned group that's been active for about 15 years. We've been involved in such things as sampling water in the lake for the province of Ontario. We've worked with consultants on dealing with contaminants that are in the drains that drain into Lorain Bay. We've been in contact with the drainage superintendents over the years discussing the issues, and most recently worked with the NPCA on the Lake Erie North Shore Watershed Plan, and had a member of our community on the steering committee, Doug Frame. This evening, I'd like to talk to you about Lorain Bay water quality improvement. And our group has attended numerous conferences over the last number of years, and in the past year attended a conference in Ohio as well as Niagara Falls. The most recent one in Niagara Falls was the Great Lakes and St. Lawrence Cities Initiative that was held in June. And we learned a few things there and about Lake Erie. And firstly, it's the efforts that were made in the 1970s to reduce the phosphorus and improve water quality in the lake were successful. But Lake Erie is getting back to the same problems of the 1970s, and actually it's getting worse. We've learned that eastern Lake Erie, which is where we are, has extensive lawns of cladophora growing close to shore due to increased near-shore phosphorus levels. And we learned that the phosphorus levels near shore are due to runoff from local drains containing phosphorus, both absorbed and attached to silt. So in other words, the local near-shore water quality is in fact due to local drains and creeks. Here's a picture of the Wignall-Michener drain flowing into the Lorain Bay. This was taken in 1981, but the same thing is currently happening. As you can see, the silt flows into the bay, carrying contaminants that feed the cladophora that's growing near shore. And here's a picture from 2001 when the cladophora washes up on shore. It becomes seaweed, and you can see this is a member of the community on Lorain Bay, right into it. Here's another picture from 2003, just shortly after a storm. You can see large piles of seaweed. And most recently, September 2011, here's a picture of the seaweed as it's started to decompose and turned into a nice black sludge. What have we learned through these conferences? One of the things is that water quality improvement in the Great Lakes is a priority for all levels of government, federally, provincially, and locally. And also that funding is available provincially and regionally for water quality improvement projects in municipal drains. Provincially, there's money available through a Water Opportunities Act. And also there's regional initiatives that could provide funding through such organizations such as the NPCA and possibly even other organizations. Now the Beaver Dam and Michener-Wignall drains both run into Lorain Bay. The watershed of these drains is about 2,300 hectares. Both drains are currently being studied for improvement under the Drainage Act by a company called AMEC. And they're also making some consideration for water quality improvement with the help of another group called Dugan Associates. Now, under the Drainage Act, water quality improvements would be passed on to the landowners, and that's just the nature of the Drainage Act. It's about 100 years old and doesn't make a lot of consideration for water quality. And due to this, the consultant does not expect significant improvements to the water quality in the work that will be done in the near future. Now, our concern is that without water quality design considerations, increased water flow, which would be a result of the improvements to these drains, would make the water quality in Lorain Bay and Lake Erie worse than it currently is. What we would like is to gain support from the City of Port Colborne to have the Beaver Dam and Michener-Wignall drains become model drains. All municipal drains will need the same consideration, and this is an opportune time to move on these two, simply because they're being engineered right now by AMEC. And we would like to apply for funding, both provincially and regionally, to improve the water quality in these drains. But that will need a plan and a cost estimate. So first of all, we're looking for support. And secondly, we're going to need a plan and a cost estimate so that we can approach other levels of government for funding for this particular initiative. Now, the AMIC study is going to be considering many water quality options in their current design, but will only present one in their final design. So there's going to be a number of water quality options considered. So I guess what we're looking for is, first of all, support from the city to initiate some funding from various levels of government to support the model drains for both Beaver Dam and Michno. And secondly, as a first step to be able to move forward on this, we would like to request that AMIC expand their water quality options in the study that's currently underway. Now, there's one side note here, and we do have a landowner that on the Beaver Dam drain, that's a member of the Lorain Bay community, that is prepared to offer land along the Beaver Dam drain for the establishment of a settling pond or a marsh. Any questions?
Thank you. Well done. Councillor Doucette.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. When Mr. Frost came to us at the Environmental Committee, I thought it was important that he come here to council. And the reason being is that I don't believe, and unless Mr. Hansen can tell me otherwise, the quality of the water is not the problem of the Drainage Act. And that's a big issue. The Drainage Act was created to essentially get rid of the water as fast as possible so that the people that have the water on their lands leave it. So because of that, I'm not convinced that AMIC or any other group is going to come up with anything that will really give us meaningful water quality. It's not that they couldn't, it's just not part of the Drainage Act. So I'm wondering if there isn't a way of separating the two. And I'm not convinced they should go together. And by doing that, maybe staff can work with Mr. Froese and this group and develop and look at where funding could be gotten. Number one, where can we get this funding? Number two, how can we create maybe a test area that could become a model even for the province as to how to get a lot of these contaminants out of the water before it reaches the lake. Who knows? Maybe Toronto would be interested in taking a serious look at a model if we can develop something that will work. And your settling pond and marsh are often the easiest way to create that and to get that quality up, is what I've been able to get. So I'm just wondering, can we in some way, shape, or form get together? But I don't think these two can go together in tandem. I think they need to go together separately.
Thank you, Councillor. And I'm going to ask Mr. Howe to comment not only on your question with respect to the Drainage Act, but also to comment on the Nutrient Management Act as per the responsibility of the Niagara, well, the MPCA, the Niagara Peninsula Conservation Authority. Mr. Howe?
Your Worship, one of the legislation stems back from early 1800s when the first piece of legislation was really passed, really dealt with drainage, trying to drain land so that people could get out and farm. The most current legislation was approved in 1975. The current Drainage Act is in a complete codification of start to finish on drainage. There's a provision in there for environmental issue, but it is by the Conservation Authority. And it is not a cost to the drain, and has never been a cost to the drain. The intention of the legislation is to get the land drained so that it can be used for farming purposes. There's even some, I guess, there's even been some use of it in urban area for urban drainage, but it's really focused on drainage as far as the Ontario Ministry of Agriculture and Food Rural Affairs is concerned. As far as the environmental component is, The stewards of the land, the farmers themselves, have a responsibility in respect of what they put on the soil, and what they put on the soil may impact, I don't know environmentally, and that is a concern for the Conservation Authority in respect of its role under the Drainage Act. It can authorize any kind of environmental study, but it is at the expense of the Conservation Authority. So they don't very often do it. In fact, I don't know of any drain, and the drainage maintenance program in Wainfleet that I pulled together and the ones that we've done over the past years, I don't know of any situation where the Conservation Authority has actually requested an environmental consideration, environmental study. In this instance, Your Worship, we may be able to at least investigate, but as for part of the drain, I don't know that AMEC or the engineer can do anything under the Drainage Act. Doesn't mean they can't do it, but I imagine they're going to ask to be paid for it. That'll be the catch. And right now there isn't any provision under the Act. It's very specific. As I said, it's a completely codified process that provides direction to the engineer. And the engineer has to follow what that legislation says. The issue in respect of water quality isn't in the Act. Wasn't written in the Act in 1975, although, and the province has never ever amended the legislation. In the late 1980s, I was on a committee of the province providing advice in respect of, quote, greening the Drainage Act. And the province at the time elected not to make any changes. Whatever is mindful of the province at the time, but they elected not to make any changes to the Act. And in fact, the Ministry of Natural Resources, which was the concern at the time, had elected to understand what the Drainage Act was, and it really became a training exercise for MNR in respect of what the Act did and why it did it. Right now, there isn't a provision in the Act, and whether or not something could be done would have to be initiated outside of the drainage process. Right now, Council has approved the engineers, and they are preparing the reports under the Drainage Act. There was some study on the Lorain Bay water quality that was reviewed about 5 or 6 years ago, and I'm not sure of the detail. I think Mr. Hansen might be able to provide more detail than I can on it. And I'm not sure how that got paid for, but I believe it was paid for. I think it was just part of the investigation by the city to try and find out how to do the drainage in a way that was environmentally, I guess, responsible. But at this point in time, the Drainage Act doesn't provide for water quality.
Thank you, Mr. Howe. Councillor?
Thank you very much, Mr. Heil. That was quite enlightening, by the way. Very, very helpful. I would like to find a way for us as a group to go look for funding. This group has already looked at some possible funding, and to see if there isn't anything we can do for the quality of the water. I don't know, but I believe that with them coming to us and saying, can you please help, I think we have at least an obligation to take a look. We may be able to come back, we may come back and say, look, there really isn't anything out there we can do. But at least we can look into it. And I believe that's all this group is asking, is let's look into it, let's see what we can do, and maybe we can do something.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Bodner.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think we would all certainly like to see clean water going into the lake. That's the ultimate drain. And certainly for those on council will remember where we looked at an option for settling ponds and that on this particular drain, I believe, or drainage watershed anyways, a number of years ago. Certainly those are available. We looked at settling ponds and everything. And you know, that we could dust that off and take another look at it. I know it was $1 million, I believe, was the cost to put this pretty deluxe system in. it would run along our trail system and that, but certainly we have some history on that. And I guess, you know, there's a debate whether settling ponds work in this type of soil, with clay soil versus sandy soil. So I know the drainage superintendent has been talking, Rick, to you and your group, I know. Councillor Butters and I met with him for a couple hours to really try to understand different options and things that are going on. But certainly to find out what provincial money and regional money might be available, I think that's certainly incumbent upon us to go that route. I guess I have a question to Mr. Heil or Mr. Hansen. If there is money to be spent, I understand, Mr. Heil, you're saying it will not be under the Drainage Act, or let me ask my question, then I'll get your answer. If there is money to be spent and it is put on the drain, so that people that pay into the drain have to pay that, will we have to open up public meetings on that drain again? Or is there a contingency or something for events like this? And how will we let the people know, other than if they read it in the paper or something, people in the watershed know that we're looking at this and this is going on? Will there be some correspondence sent to people that are, we certainly have a list of them, we send them bills, so I would imagine we could send them quite easily notification that we're looking at different options in this. So just a couple of questions here.
Mr. Howell?
Your Worship, spending money on the drain, everything that's spent on the drain, engineering report, any work that has to be done on the construction of the drain, is charged to the drain. So the property owners pay based on their proportion of water that they contribute to the drain, as well as any benefit as a result of them being on the drain. These are considered new reports. They're being revised from one end to the other. Every property owner within the drain will receive a complete copy of the report. They will be invited to a meeting. There will be court will be held. There will be opportunity to object to any of their charges per acre, or any special assessments being given to each of the property owners as a result of the cost, as well as any allowances that they may make or may get because of rights-of-ways or things that they have to provide for the drain. There is also a right of appeal to the Drainage Tribunal of Ontario by anybody in the watershed, again, who may be assessed or feel unfairly assessed. As well, the city is also one of the proponents for all of the roads and all the properties owned by the city. It will be assessed for every acre that it owns and uses any of these drains. So there is a lot of opportunity here for appeal. There will be a full public process as these reports come forward. Outside of the drainage area, there will be no notice unless council wants to invite others to come in to attend, although their status at the meeting to consider the drainage report really speaks to just the people who are assessed within the drain and who have an interest in the drain.
Councillor? That's fine. Councillor Butters, Kenny, Desmarais.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. My understanding was that through AMAC, Dugan was subcontracted to deal with some water quality issues specifically with this drain. So if that information is correct, and I'm pretty sure it is because I got that from Henry Benmere, what this group is basically asking for is that when Dugan looks at those water quality issues, to come up with the one option that would be presented to AMEC and then to council eventually, is that instead of only the one option to be looked at, this group would have an opportunity to the information that would say, okay, there might be 2 or 3 options. They would narrow it down to 1. This group would just like to know what the other 2 or 3 might be, so they can then use that information to then be able to submit proposals to get the funding for water quality improvement works to do with this drain. And if it could be funded through grants, either provincially or federally, done in conjunction with the work that needs to be done on the drain to improve the water quality. It wouldn't be being paid for by the landowners per se. Doesn't really have anything to do with the Drainage Act under which this falls. And I totally understand that it isn't under the Drainage Act that, water quality is an issue. But it is only to provide this group with the information that our consultants are doing anyway. So it is only to expand it to allow them a little more access to that information that they would be digging into as a result of the work that they're doing on this anyway. Without that information, it would be pretty hard for them to write up a proposal without the information from Dugan. So if this is like, I don't perceive this to, it shouldn't be a big problem. I don't even see that it's necessarily a huge money issue, but as far as asking them to provide that information to this group, we have a group of citizens right now that are quite prepared to do the legwork to go after the federal provincial monies that they believe are out there. And I think they've been to enough conferences to kind of have gathered that sense that there is monies available. If we can do a better job on this drainage work, it's kind of like when you build the road and then you go back in and tear it up to fix the water pipes. We don't want that to happen. If there's an opportunity to do it in conjunction with the drainage work, this would be the time to do it, 18 months to 2 years from now. That's when it'd be time to put these better procedures in place if it's possible. The only way we'll know if it's possible if we give these folks the information that is already being gathered, and keep in mind, like, the Doug Frames and the Chet Dans of this world have been working for like the last 15 years, collecting data that the MPCA has used, the Regional Public Health has used. It's been invaluable data to know what's going on in these water courses, at least that particular one. So to me, their idea is an excellent idea. And if there's a way that we can work with that, to expand that parameter just like this much to give them that information, then that's the road we should be going on. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Mr. Howe.
Your Worship, we can certainly pose all of these questions, information to AMAC and whoever they've got on contract, and want to see what they can do, how they can do it, what the cost would be, and then come back to council with it. There's an issue, if there's any cost, like it has to come back here, and council will make the determination what it's going to do with it, how it can handle it, and if there are opportunities for grants out there, the first thing we're going to do is go and find them if we possibly can. We'll enlist every person in Lorain Bay that has any contact anywhere in any level of government to give us assistance to try to find out where, in fact, there may be some money.
Thank you, Mr. Howe. Councillor Kenny.
Thank you, Your Worship. Thank you, Rick, once again. Just so you know that Rick came to the Environmental Committee on November the 2nd and made this presentation to members of the Environmental Committee. And really, City of Port Colborne has an environmental committee that was formed last term, and it's very important that we address these environmental issues. When I saw that picture that Rick showed us in regards to what's going into our lake, it's very discerning because really and truly, this group of people are bringing that forward, but it's for the public good. It's not just helping this group of people. When you have that going into the lake, we as a municipality on the lake should be concerned when we see that picture. And we should be trying to do something to make sure that water is clean that's going into our lake. It's a public concern, not just this group who are in this area. I understand how the Drainage Acts work where you're assessed a certain amount. But I'd like to hear from Mr. Hansen, if I could, because Ron, I do remember when I think it was 2005 when we had that study in regards to that. And if you could just enlighten us can we dust off that report? Can we look at that? Just so we have a costing that we're going with. But I certainly feel that, this council should support, because it is an environmental issue and that we should report it. But if I could hear from Mr. Hansen, please, Your Worship, in regards to that report that we had back then.
Thank you, Councillor. Mr. Hansen.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. Statements made previously are correct. In terms of, in talking to our drainage superintendent and AMAC, in terms of the Drainage Act itself, the parameters within the Drainage Act only deal with the hydraulics and hydrology of the drain itself. Very minor water quality control, sediment control within the drain. Now, going back when Rennie Landry was here as our drainage superintendent, there were some a study put together in terms of what could be done with settling basins along the drain. I know there were proposals on the Beaver Dams drain along the unopened Miller Road allowance, and also some proposals for settling basins along the walking trail, the east-west trail near the Inco lands. The estimates, if I remember correctly, were in excess of $1 million. And there were a lot of discussions at the time with the NPCA and the MNR with regards to how this could be funding and how it could be funded and how the study could go ahead. Unfortunately, that did not proceed, and there doesn't seem to be a clear line now to that funding. I know Henry Benamir has done extensive research into those files and has met with the group and also met with AMAC in terms of what studies could be done and where that funding might be available. So I think the recommendation to go back to them, get a report back to council on what our options might be, what funding might be available, and then proceed with it. The comments I got from Henry today in terms of this is that the council should be very cognizant of the public component that's involved here. As stated from the group, the 2,300 hectares that are impacted by these two drains, that's a large public component where we would have to go back to the public and determine what their thoughts are in terms of any proposals within the drain. So it's not just a group here. We're dealing with a very large number of people. So that has to be a consideration when we talk about opening that back up for study. So I think the background data, maybe to answer your question, is available. We can certainly bring all that forward. I know Henry's been working on it. And then come back to council with a report on all the background information.
Thank you, Mr. Hanson. And I just wanted to make one comment on that 2,300 hectares. You see that picture that's on the screen? They're contributing to that. So that has to be recognized as well when we go through this process. Councillor Desmarais. Oh, go ahead, Councillor.
I guess that would be through you to Mr. Heil. Mr. Heil, I know you've said that we can, certainly look into if there's funding and stuff available, but this group just really wants to know tonight, is there a possibility to approach Dugan and Associates who are doing the testing to ask them to expand that so that they're not just presented with one, but they're presented with many? Is that a possibility?
Mr. Hanson?
Through Mr. Mayor, we can certainly have that discussion with AMAC and their subconsultants. We'd have to acquire a price once we understand what the parameters would be for this type of study. Obviously, as we stated, it's far beyond anything provided for in the Drainage Act in terms of sediment control. So go back to the subconsultants, see what this would entail and see what some of the cost figures are, and then council would have that to deliberate before they made any further commitments to the study itself.
Thank you, Mr. Hanson. Thank you, Councillor Kenny. Councillor Desmarais?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Well, one of the benefits of going last is that most of the questions are answered, and mine, for the most part, are. But I would like to just make one comment, and that is that I believe as a city, we must be stewards of this lake. We have to take a look at what's happening there. More and more, we find ourselves limited by what's happening on the lake, and if we don't keep it clean, keep it free and accessible, make it something that people want to be on, then we're limiting part of our future.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Butters, I'm going to come back to you and hopefully receive from you some direction with respect to motion or direction to staff.
Yes, Mr. Mayor. Then I would ask that we get a report back from staff that would look to seeing what our options are in terms of expanding the Dugan's work and a price attached to that, and then suggestions on how we might go forward with that. If this council can have a look at that.
Thank you, Councillor Butters. First off, I'm going to ask for leave of council to accept that motion. Councillor Bodner, Councillor Steele, questions or comments? All in favor? To leave of council. All in favor? Opposed? That would be carried. Just to clean this up, Councillor Butters, I'm assuming that you're saying you want to report back from staff that will look at Well, obviously, if that's passed, it'll grant and or give support to what Mr. Froese has brought to us, which is the first thing that you were looking for. Secondly, it would also initiate some direction or some action, a plan of action that would be contained within that report. And lastly, it would make at least initial preparations for applications to other funding sources. So is that what I'm hearing, Councillor? Yes, sir. Okay. Do I have a seconder to that? Councillor Bodner? Councillor Bodner, you had a question.
You just said it. I didn't hear about the possible funding, but that was added. That's great.
Great. Thank you, Councillor Bodner. That's fine. Mr. Froese, any questions or comments?
No, I don't have any questions. Will there be some sort of, I guess, contact with our group during this process?
Mr. Howe?
And who would be the person of contact?
Worship, we'll commit to make sure that we provide some kind of a regular update, if we can, as we know it, through the Drainage Commissioner and Drainage Superintendent.
Okay.
If I may, as part of this report, Ron, if we can actually have the point people from the organization as part of the whole process and in the loop, so that way you folks are part of the, the direction that we're going to end up taking, and of course the communications would be appropriate, so that way the point people from your organization can keep those that are involved up to date, and we can do it from our end as well. Mr. Froese?
That's fine. I can pass my contact information on to Barb Butters.
That'd be great. That'd be fine.
You can pass that on, or
to Henry? Yeah, that'd be perfect.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Froese. Councillor Bonner?
I guess I'll go back to my original question. How about other people in the watershed? How will they get the same information shared with them? If they simply make a request, they would be afforded the same information.
Mr. Howe?
Your Worship, if this is outside of the Drainage Act, it wouldn't form a part of the report. There wouldn't be notice to them. If there was some way to incorporate it, even a piece of it, within the drainage report, then there would be notice provided, but really when the report is finished, or at least draft. The exercise of creating the report is a gathering of information about the acres and all those property owners. There is a database that is created for a mailing list. Perhaps when we find out more and bring back the options report to you, we may be able to provide you with a little more information. At that point, perhaps you may want to direct that we also go to the watershed to explain what's going on at that point. And a little postage doesn't hurt. We can do that kind of thing, inexpensive, not too much money, and provide the information to not only the citizens that are along the lakeshore that are concerned, but also the people within the watershed. We'll bring that back so that you have an idea and you know yourselves as council what it will involve, what it will undertake.
Good.
Thank you, Mr. Howell. I certainly can live with when it's in the draft stage, not the final stage. So if we're going to do this in the draft stage, absolutely, that's great. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. And just for a last comment, I think this is not contained within just the Lorain Bay area. As you know, Councillor, it's also contained within the Cedar Bay area. This is not contained within just this part. It's actually for the better part of the North Shore. I know that because I'm dealing with it. I am a member of the St. Lawrence, or the Great Lakes Initiative, which in fact you guys attended back in June. And there's a lot of initiatives that we're trying to undertake to deal with those issues right across the entire Great Lakes St. Lawrence system. Having said that, I think Councillor Bodner brought a very good point to include others throughout the watershed, simply because it's not just about drainage; it's also about nutrient management. And I wasn't being facetious when I pointed at that picture and stated that of those 2,300 hectares, those folks that are within that watershed are actually contributing to what you've seen in that picture. And quite frankly, again, not trying to be facetious, but as much as we're trying to deal with drainage here, we're also trying to deal with nutrient management, which in fact is leaching its way into those drains and of course finding its way out to the lake. And so that's just as an important component of this process as the actual drainage itself. And of course, again, it's not just Lorain Bay, it's Cedar Bay, and other bay areas. It seems to get into those cove areas, and of course we see the result, and if you drive by there, you can smell the result. It's no different than driving down Lakeshore, down by Surfside and Schofields there, where the Eagle Marsh is. It's the same thing. So it has to be dealt with. I'm confident that once we get the report back from staff, that we'll in fact be successful at going to the M&R and dealing with these very issues, because it seems to be something that it's out of sight and therefore out of mind to the provincial level of government. Well, we're going to bring it to mind and bring it to sight. So again, I look forward to that, and hopefully together with the residents of your area, but as well other areas, as we embark on this initiative, we'll get some attention down at the provincial level. Okay? Great.
Okay, I'd like to thank City Council
Thank
and
you,
look
Mr.
forward to
Froese.
working with you.
And to all the residents, thank you for your time tonight. It was great of you to come on out. David, welcome.
Great, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Appreciate that. I have a few items this evening, but I'll be as brief and succinct as possible. Some of them relate to the budget we've been discussing, several budgets, the water, wastewater, waste management, capital and operating budgets at the region. We've had that meeting last Thursday, and they've all been approved at the Committee of the Whole meeting and yet to be ratified this Thursday. So what I'm presenting, keep in mind, has to be ratified this Thursday, but this is what we have so far. So far, waste, water, and water net requisitions for 2012 will be increased by 4.3% and 0.02% respectively. So that's 0.02% for water, 4.3% for wastewater, for a combined increase of 2.5%. This represents a combined $2.6 million increase over the 2011 budgets, below the guidance target of $3.4 million. Water volume forecasting remains a priority. Regional staff has consulted with their local municipal peers to develop the 2012 water forecast. Based on these estimates, the variable water rate is proposed to be set at approximately 1.3% less than the 2011 rate. It's important to note that the 2012 budget includes a water wastewater study that will examine the option of a utility model or uploading to the region or utility of water wastewater services. That amount is approximately $600,000 to get that information, both at the regional level as well as local municipal level. So I'm sure all will be interested to see the outcome of those figures. The next budget, Mr. Mayor, briefly, is the Waste Management 2012 budget we've discussed. Overall, it looks pretty good. It's a 0.2% increase over last year. For Port Colborne, it's better, as it is a 7.5% decrease over last year. So Port Colborne ratepayers on waste management will be paying less on that portion than they had last year. The operating budget, Mr. Mayor, as you know, I'm going to do capital first. The capital budget, we forecasted a $1.4 billion need over 10 years. We have a funding shortfall for that of approximately $200 million spread over 10 years. This year we're looking at an additional $2.9 million. The way to solve that was proposed to add a 1% increase on the operating to offset the capital, which thankfully councillors put back to staff to find that money elsewhere, and they are going to do that. So we'll see relief on the operating side. The capital budget is looking to be approximately $149 million for 2012. Finally, Mr. Mayor, the operating budget we've discussed, it's looking like it's going to be approximately 3.2% of an increase over last year, and that's after assessment growth. That means approximately $41 per household, average household. I did support the other previous budgets that I mentioned, Mr. Mayor, and I will note I will be opposing the operating budget. I certainly won't be supporting it. Budget guidance was 1.9%. And regional council, at least at the committee of the whole, had plenty of opportunities to reduce that 3.2%, and they didn't. Some of those are increases to reserves, which I was opposed to, as well as we're only using a third of the 2009 Ontario Municipal Partnership funds for this year for taxpayer relief. So those are just some of the reasons, Mr. Mayor, I will be not be supporting the 3.2% increase. But we'll certainly have that conversation further on Thursday night. That takes care of the budgets. I do want to mention two other items briefly. One is the Provincial Offences Act. The region has the responsibility, they've assumed responsibility for administration of provincial offences courts and programs since 2001. Given the as-is nature of the transfer in 2001 and the compressed implementation timelines, a decision was made at the time to lease facilities in Niagara Falls, St. Catharines, Welland, and Fort Erie. Recently, and in April of this year, in fact, we received a report entitled POA Program Facilities Long-Term Accommodation Needs, which noted that present POA program facilities suffer from difficulties in responding to the increasing numbers of charges, space and design inadequacies, unfavorable leases, and building maintenance issues. The report recommended consolidation of all operations, and that's all courts and operations administration, into a single facility. The savings are estimated to be approximately $500,000 a year, building up to $1 million a year after a 10-year period. I think it's important to note 97% of all trials are traffic related in the POA courts. One of our more recent meetings since April, we've decided to examine further the possibility not only of one facility, but two, that being one in St. Catharines and one in Welland. And finally, I think I just have a note regarding hazardous waste collection that we will be doing as a region in Port Colborne on, I believe, November 19th. It's the last one for the year. We'll be at Humberston Arena from 8 a.m. to 3 p.m. 8 a.m. to 3 p.m. And it's posted on the region's website as well. So that's my report this evening, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Barrick. Members of Council, any questions of the regional councillor? Councillor Kenny, then Councillor Bodner. Councillor Kenny.
Thank you, Worship. Through you to Councillor Barrick. Councillor, you mentioned that the region had taken over the administration of the offences, which you said are traffic tickets, such and such. So I had just heard a rumor the other day, and maybe you can dispel that rumor, that there's about a $2 million uncollected fines in the Niagara region, uncollected. And that there has to be a way that these are going to be collected. And one of the suggestions was a guarantee of wages. Do you have anything to tell me about that, or that's not been discussed, or if you can help me out, thanks.
Yes, thank you, through you, Mr. Mayor. Certainly that has come up during our discussions at the Corporate Services Committee, and it is something that we recognize. There is a process for collections that they have in place already, and it certainly doesn't go to wage garnishment right off the bat. Of course, there is a process there. I know staff is working on it. It's somewhat of a delicate situation, dependent on need. As long as there's communication and a willingness to pay. Part of the issue is as well the time it takes to get to trial. So you may have a ticket, you may want to go to trial, and then sometimes the trial gets pushed off, and eventually perhaps there is a fine. They have so many days, they can extend it. So it takes a lot of time even before it gets to collections. And then once it is collections, there's a process there. And we've talked about maybe speeding that up a bit, not only court time, trial time, but also the collections as well, just for efficiency's sake.
Councillor?
Thank you. So Councillor, is that a fair amount to say that has not been uncollected? Like, is that the amount, or?
I believe that's approximate $2 million. Sounds about right. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Bodner.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to the regional councillor. I wonder, I don't need an answer tonight unless you got one in your back pocket, but the Pleasant Beach garbage saga, I just wondered whether you can bring a report to me the next meeting to tell me whether the region's put that to bed, they think it's done, or is it ongoing? And just an update on that, please.
Councillor Bear.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Councillor Bodner. You may recall the last we spoke of it was at a council meeting such as this. I can't recall how long ago now. And the last time we did speak about it, the region was waiting to hear back from the Pleasant Beach Association, and I had asked you to, because you were the contact, Councillor Bodner, to get back in touch. I haven't heard anything yet. I'm not sure if the region's heard anything as well, but that's where I'm not on the Public Works Committee. I'm not sure if you've heard anything, Mr. Mayor, but as far as I was understood, I was waiting to hear back from the Pleasant Beach Association through you.
Okay. Councillor Bodner.
I was just going to say, I don't recall that conversation about contacting the Pleasant Beach Association, but so the region doesn't have a contact with them, or they just haven't responded? Is that the...
Councillor Barrick?
Yes, I'm sure they do have a contact, but last we spoke, when I spoke with the region, they didn't hear back from them, and that's why the conversation came here, and that's where it ended up.
So what I would suggest is you guys get in contact with each other and hopefully get a contact person that they can get in contact with. Okay. Further questions to the regional councillors? With none, David, thank you. Appreciate it. We'll now move on to councillors' items, new business. Members of council? Councillor Doucette.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. Ward 2 is going to have ward meetings. The last time we had a ward meeting, we had 2 people show up. So we thought maybe, because things were going so well, that things were fantastic. But we thought we'd try to find a different way of getting people and meeting with people. Therefore, on December 8 and December 15, both Councillor Desmarais and myself will be at the Tim Hortons at the corner of Elizabeth Street and Highway 3 from 6:30 on, and anyone who would like to meet us, come and talk to us, tell us whatever it is they want to tell us. They can give us heck, or they can tell us whatever. We are more than willing to meet with you, and we're going to attempt this. This is something new. It's never been tried. We figure, what the heck, why not? So we will be there on December 8th and December 15th for anyone who would like to meet both of us.
Thank you, Councillor Doucette. Councillor Kenny.
Thank you, Your Worship. Through you to Mr. Hanson. Mr. Hanson, just before coming to council meeting chat, I got a call from a taxpayer who lives on Barrack Road. That would be east of Highway 58. And he said that there's a sign posted that says no truck traffic. I didn't get a chance to go and check it out, but he says there's a sign there that says no truck traffic, and yet trucks are using that to access Highway 58 from Casco. He mentioned Casco, and I forget another company, I'm not sure. Oscom, no, I forget. Anyways, he asked if there is a sign posted there. He wanted to know why it wasn't being enforced. I know there is a sign that says no trucks on the west side of Highway 58. As soon as you turn there, there's a sign that has a cross through it, no trucks, but it's the east side of Barrack Road, east of Highway 58. Do you know, can you help me out?
Mr. Hanson.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. We have a no truck route bylaw within the city. Barrack Road, east of Highway 58, is signed as a no truck route. As far as enforcement goes, it's a moving violation of the Highway Traffic Act. It has to be enforced by the Niagara Regional Police. We don't enforce the bylaw. So any residents seeing violations of trucks, heavier trucks being on specific no truck routes, they can report those to us directly, to the bylaws department or to the Niagara Regional Police directly, and they can enforce the bylaw. I think it's something like a $2,000 fine for use of the no truck route. So that's a violation that has to be enforced by the Niagara Regional Police. We'd be happy to do that.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Hanson. Thank you, Councillor Kenny. Further new business? Councillor Bodner.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Councillor Butters and I had the opportunity to attend Remembrance Day ceremony at Centennial Park. And I bring this up because I think a lot of people in the city don't realize there's two ceremonies on November 11th. Certainly it's been going on for a number of years, sponsored by St. John's Lutheran Church. And there's a lot of families there that have relatives that had not come back from the war. They're listed on a bronze plaque there, as well as the people that served from Hummerston Township. This is the Hummerston Township Park at Cedar Bay. It was a great turnout. We had a piper. We had the air cadets, where the four of them were standing around the memorial, and it was quite a nice service. So just to remind people that there is an option if they, for whatever reason, don't want to go to H.H. Knoll Park. Centennial Park each year has this, and it's quite a nice service. And there was in excess of 50 people there, which is pretty decent for that service. One other thing also, Councilor Butters, were you going to talk about our ward meeting, or do you want? Okay, all right. We had a ward meeting last night. I think it was pretty well attended by a number of different people, and sometimes it was a little. Well, no, they were all nice people, but there was, they were passionate about some, some issues, certainly. And we will be presenting a number of those issues. I know Councillor Butters was taking minutes, and, she has a book there, so certainly we'll be passing those on to staff. So get ready for that, just as an update. And just a couple of things that I had brought up that were brought up there. Mr. Hanson, through Mr. Mayor and Mr. Hanson, remember we talked about slow-moving vehicle signs. This was a number of months ago, and I brought it up that they're being used as driveway markers, things that you wouldn't put a stop sign on the end of your driveway to highlight it to turn in. And these are the same as a stop sign, and the more times you see these, they become irrelevant to people. So I believe under the Traffic Act, they're just to be used as a stop sign or anything else. And there was a horrific accident in Waynfleet not too long ago where somebody ran into the back of a combine, and certainly these signs, as you see them used for other than slow-moving vehicle signs, just become another sign that doesn't mean a whole lot. So certainly I'd be Councilor Butters will bring that forward to ask staff to see if there's something we can do. If somebody does have these in an inappropriate setting, whether we can remind them that they should only be used on slow-moving vehicles. And the other thing I'd brought up a while ago was cleaning the intersections, sight lines, and I know we do it for cars, but combines, when you're 10 feet up in the air, and you're looking over there and all you see is leaves, and you got to stick that front of the combine out into the road before you can see if anybody's coming. Not the best situation. And certainly we have a combine driver in the audience tonight that could, that certainly could say that it is totally unsafe. So that'll be another thing that Councilor Butters will provide in her minutes to staff. So. And there was a number of other things, and I think that's all I'll have to say on that. But our ward meeting was well attended, and I like the Tim Hortons idea, though. It's kind of cool.
Thank you, Councillor Bodner.
The reposted work.
Councillor Butters.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. If you were all sick about ditches earlier on, that was a really strong thing discussed last night at the ward meeting. But what we really need from you, Mr. Mayor, is we need a letter that could be drafted from your office for Henry Benamir to take with him. He's going to DFO this week. We have an unbelievably difficult situation with the Marsh drain and the Young-Hoff-Wagner drain, both DFO-related difficulty in getting them cleaned. We're going into year 5 for the Marsh drain, which is totally unacceptable. The one combine fellow we have in the audience told us last night that right now, because of problems with drainage, he has about 10 acres that is out of production because of the drainage problems connected with with these difficulties, and it costs about $500. It's costing him about $500 per acre that he doesn't get because he can't farm it. He can't do anything with this 10-acre of land. Multiply that by how many years they've been waiting for work to be done, and you're talking about a lot of money that this farmer can't make. We have another one in the Bethel area. He's got about 7 acres up. Some of you might know Ernest Henry's place up at the end of Brookfield, and this fellow has that property. That 7 acres is unusable, and it would be for beans at about $400 an acre lost to him over a period of years and years and years. So this drainage work not being done has a tremendous impact on the farmers in a financial sense, huge. So if you could provide that letter for Henry to use as encouragement, as asking him to intervene with the DFO for Mr. Nicholson, the MP, as well as Malcolm Allen, that would be greatly appreciated, Mr. Mayor.
Well, thank you, Councillor. And Henry and I have talked about this in the past, especially of late. And not only was my intent to send him off with a letter, but I'll be in Ottawa probably within the next 4 weeks to deal with many issues. This is in fact one of them. So hopefully I can get a sit down with the minister, if not at the very least with one of our representatives here from Niagara, and go over the issue and deal with it. And I encourage all councillors, if in fact you have these issues, I'm down at Queen's Park in Ottawa quite frequently, so bring them to my attention so I can, while I'm down there, I don't have to make 2 trips, I can make 1 trip and deal with them all in 1 day or 2 days, and that would be great. So that's my intent. Henry and I have briefed on it. I'm fully aware of it, and my intent, once again, is when I'm in Ottawa dealing with many other issues, that this is going to be one of them. I can sit down with the minister and hopefully get right down to the bottom line.
And as well, Mr. Mayor, this was asked by one of the residents along the trail and actually on the road as well. What we have is horses and their riders using the trail and along Shirkstone Road, and you have various roads. And in Port Colborne, we have like a dog pooper scooper law, but apparently horses are allowed to poop at will, and they leave behind really lousy presents for other people to have to deal with. And so I'm wondering if there's something that we can put forward, even if it's like a request to the horse people in the area, when you're out riding your horse, clean up after your animal. I don't know why anybody would think that it is a pleasure to clean up somebody else's horse manure.
Are you talking on the...
I'm talking about the Friendship Trail, and I'm
Friendship
talking
Trail.
about along the road, too.
Dan, do you want to comment on that, please? Because they're not supposed to be on that trail.
Through Mr. Mayor, presently under the Parks bylaw, horses are prohibited on the Friendship Trail. There was an email that I received, and I actually had asked if they knew who was responsible for the riding of the horses, and if they know that information, to give it to me, and I will in turn contact them and also advise the NRP of the situation. So if you know the individuals, then please pass that information along.
Well, and by all means, we're not trying to be heavy-handed here, but I think just a reminder to the folks that do have the horses to ride on the side of the trail, on the trail. And the NRP have been notified as of this afternoon. I had notified the Niagara Regional Police because they do spot checks on their ATVs with the trails, and especially this time of year because a lot of the cottages are being closed up, so they're doing their cottage program now. So they have been informed. But again, the last thing we want to do is be heavy-handed. It's just a simple reminder to those equestrians that, clean up as well as you might want to stay off the trail as you should be. Thanks, Dan. Thank you, Councillor Butters. Councillor Steele.
Thank you, Worship. Just a letter that most of us received was addressed to yourself. I'll just read it. It's from Karen Linzito. I'm writing you finally after many attempts with laptop failure regarding applying for parking variance. As per our conversation on Monday, October 31st, 2011, I'm requesting the variance for my vehicle to park in front of 14 Victoria Street, Port Colborne. I have a friend from Huntsville staying at my home. She is convalescing post-hip replacement surgery, and it would be safer for her to park in my driveway instead of on the street. I will require this permit until the end of November, as her stay has now been extended until then. My vehicle is a GMC Envoy license plate, so-and-so. I appreciate your time in this matter. Take care, and we'll see you at the meeting on the 14th. I look forward to seeing you again. It was K.L. Zito. I know this has been brought up in the past by Councillor Kenny with regards to these type of parking variances. So if we could ask or have direction of staff to come back to us with something that we can have staff apply to these certain situations. I know during the winter months it probably won't apply because we don't want cars in the road. But as far as during the good weather months, if we can allow this, for a short period of time, it might help with certain cases.
Thank you, Councillor. And if I'm going to ask Council for two. Actually, first off, if I can have leave of council. Bodner, Elliott, all in favor? Opposed? That would be carried. For two direct, I'll be asking Councillor Steele for two motions. One is to have, and I think Councillor Kenny, you and I have talked about this in the past, is to have staff come back with a report to look at those possibilities or those I guess exceptions or opportunities for people to apply for those exceptional permits based on circumstances, whether it be through staff or to council. And the second is, I think that letter, if I'm not mistaken, actually is asking for council for an exception. So I would also ask council to give consideration to that this evening because it is a timely issue, time-sensitive issue. So, Councillor Steele.
Thank you, Worship. I'll move that we direct staff to bring back a report to council to amend our parking bylaw to allow staff to issue applications for parking variances. So that'll be my first one.
Okay, go to seconder to that, please. Councillor Kenny. Questions or comments to that? All those in favor? Opposed? That would be carried. Councillor Steele.
Thank you, Worship. And secondly, I would ask that council grant this for 14 Victoria Street, Port Colborne, until the end of November, which is being asked here, to allow the owner of the household to park her vehicle in front while her friend uses her driveway.
Do I have a seconder to that? Councillor Kenny. Questions or comments to that? Members of staff, any questions, comments?
Through Mr. Mayor, fortunately Mother Nature cooperates. I just don't know if there's going to be a major snowstorm and then we were going to be permitting the parking of the vehicle on the street. It may interfere with our snow removal. Keep my fingers crossed, but just for council's information.
We'll let the resident know. She'll sit right behind you. Okay, Councillor Steele.
Through you, with regards to staff's comment, I'm sure common sense will prevail and that person would move the car. Obviously, they don't want their vehicle plowed in, so I'm sure they can find alternate means for a few days if it does happen. But the way weather's being, we won't see winter till hopefully February, March.
Any further questions or comments? Council, all those in favor? Opposed? That would be carried. Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Steele. Are there any other councillors' items or additional new business? Members of staff, any updates? Nothing. You got that look in your face. Yeah, it's coming. Members of council, I do have 2 sets of minutes here for adoption this evening, and I'll do them in block if you don't mind. I do have the first set of minutes, the minutes of the 25th meeting regular of Committee of the Whole, dated October 24th, 2011, and the minutes of the 26th meeting special of Committee of the Whole, Service Audit Advisory Committee meeting of November 7th, 2011. Mover and seconder, please. Councillor Doucette, Councillor Bodner, questions or comments? All those in favor? Opposed? That would be carried. We'll now move on to the items requiring a separate discussion. I see a whole bunch of patient youth back there that are just waiting for this. So as per Councillor Doucette's suggestion, pardon me? Yeah, we're going to move up number 8 first. Councillor Steele.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'll move that the Department of Community and Corporate Services report number 2011-28, recommendation of qualification of consulting services for conceptual design, tender documents, and construction administration be approved, recommending A, that the Council of the City of Port Colborne adopt a bylaw authorizing the Mayor and Clerk to sign an engineering agreement with Land Inc. for the completion of detailed skate and BMX park design, at a total cost of $40,021 plus taxes, and B, that the cost of the design be funded in the same manner as the final construction of the park through the borrowing of funds, either debentures or through Infrastructure Ontario's loan program.
Thank you, Councillor. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Doucette. Questions or comments? Councillor Steele.
Thank you, Your Worship. Just like yourself, I would congratulate our youth for attending this evening, for putting in lots of hours in meetings. Our staff, I see Gina back there, who helped with this, Gary's department. But before I ask Gary, and we've gone back, and this goes back to TSH days in our original design for the community center, where we had a whole day of skate park modeling and drawing, and that TSH did. They actually brought in a fellow from Vancouver, and hopefully that anything that was that came of that report they were able to use, because it was certainly it goes back a number of years, but it was fantastic then. So this is a long time coming. I'm sure our downtown businesses will be happier once they get out of the downtown core and certain other areas of town, and that we can provide a safe, a good skateboard park and BMX course for our youth and adults. Because if you go to St. Catharines, you go to Niagara Falls, you go to Fort Erie, and so forth, it really doesn't matter. I've seen people my age there zipping around. So that's pretty good, Ronnie. Yeah, that actually is good. But I'm the youngest here, so. But I will challenge you all, once it's built, to go for a bike ride on BMX. So if we could have Mr. Makins just give us a brief detail of the report, how things have gone, how the involvement of the youth has helped with this process, so that we can get going and get this built ASAP. Thank you, Your Worship.
Thank you. I'm going to ask Mr. Makins and possibly any member of the Youth Council that wants to come forward to stand with Mr. Makins and give comment. You're more than welcome. Gary?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Don't all line up. Go ahead, Gary.
Yeah, it's been a long process, a long time coming, I think, and it's nice to have this report here tonight, because it's kind of the first step in that reality. And I think that's what the youth are here tonight to see, hopefully, council support to have this park built. And like I say, it's been a long time coming. There's some students here probably that are nearing the end of their career, and they'd love to have something like this to kind of finish off, and also mentor young people coming up. We did have a number of consulting firms come take a look at it. We had an open house here, mandatory meeting. We had about 5 different groups come. We had proposals come through from 3 different organizations. So we were quite pleased with the quality of that. There are some groups that have done skate parks in Southern Ontario already too. There's some neighboring municipalities have some pretty good parks, but we think ours is probably going to be the best, whatever. So it was nice to have them come in. There's a lot of experts in the field. We're happy with the bid we got. Tonight what we're bringing forward is a proposal for just the design concept. When we went out, we looked at kind of the design, and then we talked about conceptual design documents and construction administration. But tonight we're just looking for the design. We want to make sure that that's in place first, and then really the next step is the actual construction of it. So we'll come back once we have that design down. We are looking at having the company propose 3 different models. We're looking at kind of $500,000, $600,000, $700,000 design models. So they'll bring those back, working with the youth, right? The big part of this is, I'm not a skateboarder, I'm not the expert, we're not the experts. Really, the experts are the people behind us, and then the people that design this. So they will be working with the youth to make sure it's designed to meet their needs. We have a big component of BMX here, bigger than I thought. It's actually had more BMX than skateboarders, and that's kind of different for me. So, we want to make sure that we have that designed properly so that they can both coexist, right? There's different skill sets and different areas. So we want it designed right. We want it done right the first time. I think that was what, having the experts come on is what's going to do. It's going to allow them to work with the youth. And they're also committed to a couple of things. We're also at public meetings. Right? We've got a location that we're planning to put it, but we don't have 100% an okay from the Seaway yet. We have to still meet with them. They want to see our design, see what it look like, talk about drainage and those types of things before they give us that, yes, go ahead. So
And, you know, there's people that live in the neighborhood too, that we have to meet with them and make sure that their concerns are met. So the public meetings will be a big part of this also. And then the other thing that the company that we're recommending tonight, one of the value add things they said they would do too, is to help work with the youth to do a fundraising component also. Right? Part of the Mayor's Youth Advisory Committee and the Spade Ford Park group have committed they'd like to do like a 10% fundraising of the cost. So they're going to commit to doing that. So with Land Inc., if that's the company that's awarded them tonight, they're a big part of that too. So they want to work with us to help them do the fundraising. So it's a full service model, and it's looking really exciting. And like I said, I think the youth here tonight are excited to see it get to this point.
Thank you, Mr. Rankin. Well stated. Councilor Doucette.
Both previous speakers have said pretty well everything I've had to say, except for one thing. This particular company will work with MIAC for fundraising. That didn't seem to be something that we threw into the mix, and they are willing to do that. They also do things like design for crime prevention through environmental design. So when they design something, they design it so that if there is a criminal element in the area, it can be picked up very quickly. So that's very important. They also design for what they call eco-concrete, which is applying an LEED, the lead type of thing, so that means that it will be as green as possible. And that's also very important. So this particular, I'm so proud of this group that has put everything together to help us put this RFP out. These young people have been patient, as the mayor said. These young people deserve a process that will work. This is one that will work for them, and these individuals will work with them to get something that we, as Port Colbornites, will enjoy, and they will enjoy. And that's very important as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Doucette. Further questions or comments? Councilor Elliott.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you, I guess the one glaring thing that I picked up on that Gary spoke to was I went through and I thought, okay, we're going to put it in Lockheed Park. That's great. But I didn't see the commitment from the Seaway to allow us to build it in the park. So I'm glad that you've had the conversation with them. If memory serves me correct, this was the last item that we discussed in the strategic planning session almost a year ago. And how slow does the political wheel grind? So it's good to see this. The only question I had, actually, were two questions really. Previously, we had inquired to neighboring municipalities about their designs for their skate parks, and I believe some of them were shared with us. Did any of those skate parks manage to make it into what we want, or did we just cast them aside? Is there any cost savings because we have their designs in our possession, or did we just kind of get them in, use them for informational purposes, and kind of set them aside? So I guess through you to Gary.
Mr. Makins?
Yeah, through you, Mr. Mayor. We do have some of the design stuff from both Port Erie and Niagara Falls. Some of it may be incorporated. We have to work with the group that we have. We can't simply just take something that somebody else has designed because they pay for it or whatever, so you can't just, it's like, you design a house, I can't have all your drawings and build the same thing. But certainly, I think we've had the youth attend those parks and find out what parts of that concept that they like, and we'll try and incorporate some of that. But the other part is we want to make it performant too. So we're hoping for maybe some kind of nautical theme, where those are the types of things we'll talk about when we get into the design concept. So yes, the elements that are a good part of those things will be incorporated into this, but there will be also a performance design.
Councilor Elliott.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thanks, Gary. And I guess the second question is when the community at large takes a look at this and listens to it and sees this on TV, they're gonna hear $500,000, $600,000, and $700,000, and I'm sure there's gonna be a lot of people question why are we gonna spend that much money on a skate park? And I'm just wondering if the 5, 6, and 7 benchmarks are kind of like your base, your mid, and your high grade park. Is that something where we're starting from
Is it the high end that we're looking at and we can scale down? Or is it going to be, is the $500,000 price point the base model and we're going to add on top of that?
Mr. Makins?
Yeah, through you, Mr. Mayor. Certainly, and the $700,000 is certainly not a high end, because the skate parks that are well in excess of that. So certainly we looked at what we thought was affordable, but also something that was going to meet the needs of the youth and for the long term. This is something I think you want to do once and only once, and have it last and be relevant for a number of years. So the $500,000 is kind of that base model, whatever, and we're certainly looking at adding some more components and larger space when you get the $600,000 to $700,000. With the BMX bikes being incorporated, you need a larger space than you do for just skateboarding. So it's something that, more concrete, that type of stuff. But certainly that's what we're looking at, and hopefully bring that back to that.
Councilor Doucette?
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. One thing I can add to that is that it's critical that whatever we build, we do it right. One of the concerns I have in building anything that has to do with this type of activity is safety. And if you don't build it right, within less than 3 to 4 years, you have safety issues. And we have to make sure that this company gives us a design that will sustain and last for a long time. There are some parks out there right now that have put angle iron in some of the corners and talking to some of the individuals. Some of that is rusting out now, and some of it is slowly falling apart. And they're not that old. We have to make sure that that doesn't happen to us. Because if we build this, I don't want to be back here in 5 years or 6 years, or someone else is back here instead of me because I'm not on council anymore, and they have to spend $300,000-$400,000 retrofitting it all back in because it wasn't done properly. So yes, how much it's going to cost is important, but the design and how it's built is also critical. We have to make sure it's done right.
Thank you. Councilor Bodnar?
Through you to Mr. Makins. Gary, will this $500,000, $600,000, $700,000 include all the landscaping and putting the park back in order after they do the construction and that, or is that something the city will do on top of this?
Mr. Makins?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. I believe it was just the construction and the landscaping that was extra. I'd have to check, make sure, but I'm pretty sure.
Further questions or comments in the report? Well, just as a quick, brief last comment, I have to say that, and as Councilor Steele stated, this has been a long time coming. I know when I got into office back in 1997, probably your older brothers or sisters or cousins who are much older now, who are probably not skateboarding anymore, or maybe, or BMX biking, requested this on behalf of the youth of the community back then. Here we are in 2011, almost 11 years later, finally getting it into the ground. I guess it's all money, right, at the end of the day. But again, it's a long time coming, and I have to express my appreciation to a few people. First off, Gary, yourself, I know how hard you've worked on this. Gina, I know Gina's in the back of the room. I was hoping she'd do a speech tonight, but she's actually declined. But Gina, I know how hard you've worked on this with the youth. Councilor Doucette, as a member of the Youth Council and in terms of a council appointee, I know how long you've worked on it, but most importantly, my Youth Council, as well as the youth in general throughout the community, I recognize how hard and how long you've worked on it. This is yours. We look forward to handing it over. I'm not going to say any more until the day we cut that ribbon, because there's a lot more to be said in terms of what this facility is going to in fact be. It's yours. You're going to make it, and I'm sure there's going to be a lot more happening over there than just skateboarding and BMX biking. Somebody mentioned today mentoring and things of that nature, and quite frankly, it just once again opens up the city of Port Colborne to all ages. It's a community where everyone belongs, and these investments solidify and validate that we're not just simply, as people call it, a retirement community here in Port Colborne. This community is in fact, the doors are open, the front doors are open for all ages, and these investments once again validate that. So especially to you guys back there, thank you for being patient tonight, and thank you for the work that you put into this project. Mayak, I see Shauna back there. Shauna, to you as well. Great job. Well done. So with that, members of council, with no further questions or comments, I'll ask or call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? That will be carried unanimously. Thank you. Well done, guys. Members of council, I see two other very patient fellows out there. One I'm sure is missing a hockey game tonight. So I'm gonna, if you don't mind, I'm gonna bring up item 10 as well. Now, that item was lifted by Councillor Elliott, and if Councillor Elliott wants to introduce that to members of council.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. That Department of Planning and Development Report Number 2011-82, Downtown Central Business District Community Improvement Plan and Urban Design Strategy, Review of Public Input on Market Square Options be approved, recommending 1, that this report be received for information purposes, and 2, that council provide direction on the design for Market Square parking area and King George Memorial Park to be funded subject to 2012 deliberations for its design and or construction.
Thank you, Councillor Elliott. Over seconder to that, please. Councillor Steele. Questions or comments to that? Councillor Elliott.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I guess we have to ask for leave of council to allow
yes,
Gary Talassi to speak. Gary sits on and is the chair of the BIA CIP subcommittee. So if I would ask for leave so that Gary can speak as well.
Thank you. To a seconder to that, please. Councillor Steele. Questions or comments? All those in favor? Opposed? That will be carried. Mr. Talassi, welcome.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor Badaway, councilors, city staff, and members of the public. Thank you for this opportunity to speak this evening. I'm Gary Talassi, the owner of Dundee Wealth at 99 Clarence Street here in Port Colborne. And as Councillor Elliott mentioned, I'm chair of the CIP Coordination Committee of the Downtown Port Colborne BIA. Tonight you have before you a report regarding some input from the community on changes or no changes to King George Park and the Market Square. And I wanted to comment on the report for a couple of reasons. As outlined in the report, there were several methods of gathering input from the community about possible changes. And at the open house that was held on September 15th, both BIA Chair Bob Porter, who's in attendance this evening, and I attended and submitted the report that you see in front of you, the one I just delivered to you, regarding the BIA's sense on changes with King George Park and the Market Square. The report in front of you that was prepared by city staff indicates they received 31 responses. That was a little bit disappointing to us and likely to you also, but it is what it is. In most cases, the great majority of people weren't looking for any changes to be done in either of those two areas. But I wanted to thank the author of the report for not counting the BIA report in this report. To have counted it as one response would have trivialized the input from the BIA, because as I'm sure most members of council know, the downtown BIA represents 108 businesses in the downtown area here of the city. All of the public comments that this report is based on are in Appendix B, which was too large to provide to you, but is accessible through the city website. I took a look at it and found that this two-page report that we put together is in fact pages 115 and 116 of that appendix. So that was another reason for our visit this evening, to make sure that you were aware that the BIA had held a general meeting in order to solicit some input from our members and then prepared this report. I think it's fair to say that the downtown BIA supports a revitalization of the Market Square and King George Park. And in meeting with city staff and the consultants and then our own membership, we kind of broke it out into 3 areas: parking and landscaping, which I won't comment on this evening, but then the Market Square area, and it should probably say / King George Park. We made some recommendations for improvements in that area. And you have it before you, but I'll just rhyme off a couple of things. We support a permanent stage with a covered roof, although we're cognizant of the fact that the Market Square and King George Park are in a residential area. So we're confident that a model can be developed that maximizes the opportunity without disrupting the neighboring residential areas. We support the installation of a winter ice skating rink. We recommend a central information center or LED event calendar be established in King George Park. And we want to emphasize the need for public washrooms and a drinking fountain in King George Park Market Square area. The economic recovery has not taken hold in downtown Port Colborne, and the current business climate is very precarious. The BIA members acknowledge that infrastructure improvement will bring traffic disruptions and business interruptions. Therefore, the BIA recommends that the Market Square improvements be done first, followed by the infrastructure, parking, and landscaping improvements. And in light of that, we believe there are enough competent people with good ideas among BIA members and city staff that we can accomplish most of the layout and design of the Market Square improvements without spending money on consultants. I thank you for your time, and I'm happy to try and address any questions that you might have.
Thank you, Gary. Members of council, are there any questions or comments? Councillor Elliott.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And I had a chance to have a conversation with Gary this afternoon. To invite him, I didn't know whether or not that he had made it because I didn't see on the agenda that he had been scheduled. I think with the day off on Friday, we kind of got caught up in the short week. I'd just like to echo what Gary said. In conversations with downtown BIA and having the general meeting, the consensus amongst the BIA people is that if we're going to do anything in the downtown, the need to revitalize the park and the Market Square is goal 1. If I know that the scarcity of dollars going forward in our budgets, it's going to be hard to come by. So I guess what we're asking for is support in principle now, and I guess when we come to the budget for 2012, that we keep in mind that the streetscaping and that the complete redesign of the streets in all of downtown is going to be a considerable amount of money. It didn't. I don't think we thought that it reflected very well in the numbers and the percentages on the questionnaires and the report how important this is to the downtown BIA and to the 108 members of the BIA. And I think that that Gary wanted to speak tonight to just to reinforce that. I do like the comment, and I think it was bandied about in a meeting that we don't really need a consultant to come in for $100,000 and redesign, because it's basically pushing some dirt around and building some structures. It's not a complete workup of the existing areas. So I do believe that in-house and maybe throughout the city or through the BIA, we can find enough people that can get together and design what we're looking for. So I thank Gary for coming tonight. He does chair our CIP committee, and I know that he's put a lot of work into doing this with our meetings with ACOM as well too. So I'm glad that he came, and if he's got anything further to add that maybe I've missed, to us it's just this is the area that we need to focus on, and if we're going to do anything, let's do the Market Square and King George Park, and then we can work out what's from there.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Doucette.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. Through you to Mr. Talasi. I'm looking here and it says redesign commemorative function. And some of the people from the Legion have been talking to me, and I have a special individual that I usually have contact with. And one of his concerns is, what are we going to do with what is there now? Because that's been there, it's important to them, and it's important to this particular individual. A few weeks ago, the mayor and I were out there dedicating one of the benches to the Korean vets. What is going to be done with what is there now? Is it going to be incorporated? So I gather B means redesign commemorative function. You're going to take what's there and sort of reincorporate it in there somehow? Or are you going to try to eliminate those two things? Because I've heard some people are fearing that. So I don't know, because it doesn't really indicate it on this, and it doesn't indicate on any other literature that I've seen. Okay, and those have been dedicated, which means they're important to the people and to the city.
Thank you, Councillor. Members of Council, are there any further questions or comments? Mr. Klaus? Yeah, go ahead.
Sure. You haven't seen anything specific there, Councillor Doucette, because those decisions haven't been made yet. There's certainly not anything that we're entitled to make the decision on. We're anxious to provide input, just like we would on any other issue. Certainly there have been some discussions about whether they would continue to be there or not, whether they could be relocated, and we don't anticipate any of those discussions taking place without getting input from the Legion and whomever else might have an interest in those particular commemorative features. I should add that we're ecstatic to be involved in the process. We appreciate the opportunity to meet with city staff and with the consultants. We think the only thing that can result from that is an overall result to this CIP process, which hopefully can be go smoother and not have some of the surprises or negative feedback that have occurred in other areas of the municipality. So we're anxious to be partners in the process.
Thank you, Mr. Talasi. Further questions or comments? Members of Council? Councillor Steele.
Thank you, Your Worship. Actually, not to the presenter, just to the process here. So, I mean, I think Council understands that this is going to be a phased-in project because of the size of the downtown area as compared to Main Street. Certainly, we know that the BIA or the Business Association in that area drove that project very similar as we want the BIA in this area to help drive this. But as far as priorities and how we roll this out and what areas are done first, second, third, and so on, and how the dollar is going to be allocated, like, do we know a dollar figure or an approximate dollar figure for the Market Square now? And if that's done first, how does it delay or postpone other areas as they roll out? I mean, there's only so much money to go around, and you know, how is this all going to be rolled out? I think before we make any decisions on what's first, I think we need to see all of it together. I know this came in after the fact with regards to the streetscaping, but you've got your streetscaping, you've got your facade improvement programs, and all those. I mean, are we rolling those out, or are those all going to be delayed now, or that's a concern I have? And you know, as somebody that represents the downtown core, I mean, I'm hearing calls both on the market side and the facade side and the streetscape side, and you know, what areas can be done first. You know, are you going to start in the east end, you're going to start in the west end, the north end, the south end of the downtown core? How's it all going to work? I mean, those decisions obviously haven't been made, but has staff come up with an approximate value of what the BIA is asking here. It doesn't sound as major as what was put in the design, the initial design from our original guy, where they're saying they don't need full design consultants, but the BIA and staff can design it themselves. If Mr. Aquilina can answer that, is that something that can be done? Is the amenities to be put in the market square in the park a lot less than what was in the original design? And again, is that dollar value going to delay other areas?
Thank you. Mr. Aquilina.
Through Mr. Mayor, to answer Councillor Steele's questions, no, we have not come up with a ballpark figure with the redesign of Market Square because Council hasn't directed anything to be done at this moment. Council will recall we had the streetscape design. Our consultants are doing that right now. Market Square wasn't part of that work. The overall cost to do the downtown CIP, we don't know those figures. The only thing we can kind of ballpark estimate, we know what Main Street cost, that was $5.6 million. Downtown is about 4 times the size. But getting back to the Market Square, we have not had an opportunity to even cost estimate anything, and typically that is done through a designer that is going to design whatever council directs. We're not there yet. We need council's direction. I can't speak for other city staff whether or not this is something that we can do in-house. It all depends on what council's design is. Is it structural? Is it just landscaping? What is it? What does council want to see on Market Square, both at the King George Park and to the actual Market Square area? We need that direction, Mr. Mayor.
Okay. Councillor?
Thank you, Your Worship. Thanks, Dan. Then through you to the Speaker, is the BIA prepared to come through with a concept now that you guys can put together, at least to allow us to see what changes you want at Market Square?
Mr. Talasi?
At this point, we haven't had those types of discussions, but if that's what City Council decided they wanted from us, I think we could go back and spend some time doing that, and hopefully you'll allow us to work with your city staff during that process.
Councillor?
Thank you, Worship. Thank you, Mr. Talasi. I have no problem in that, because I think it needs to come forward that we can look at the whole package together and make an informed decision on how we're going to roll this whole thing out. So, I mean, if you look back, I'm not sure the exact date. Dan and Ron could probably give me the better date, but I mean, it wasn't that long ago that we redid the Market Square area, and I understand what you're saying. And some of that that's already been done can stay, and then just what I'm getting from is enhancing what's already there. So, again, if that's going to save money. My biggest concern, though, is with the facade and streetscaping. And I just don't want to see any of that delayed. I think those things are very important. It's not that the park is in huge disarray at this time. I know the BIA of, and excuse me, but Mr. Aquilina and Mr. Hanson, what year did we finish the reconstruction of Market Square?
Well, one.
It's been about 10 years now? That long, eh? Wow. I am older than I thought. However, it is still in good shape, and aesthetically it's still pleasing. And I understand where the BIA is coming from. I mean, they've got to be involved in this whole process, not just Market Square. And, you know, I hope that they understand that, that they continue with the whole project. But, you know, is it something, can we do parts of it now in conjunction with the streetscaping side of it? I mean, that's where I think it's important that we see something come through from the BIA. Gives us a handle on what we can roll out first as time goes on. Again, I don't think it needs to be repaved yet. I don't think lights need to be changed yet. You know, things of that nature. I mean, it is 10 years old. However, you know, as things roll out, maybe some of those stuff can be done at the end of the whole project to enhance what already has been done. So I think it's important that they do come back to us with some design details and asks on you know, prioritizing what they want to see done in the park, what should be done first, and scale it down. Almost like we do with staff and roads, water, sewer. It's a worst first scenario where we can you know, we can pick at areas as time goes on, and then hopefully everything can meld together in a shorter period of time, as opposed to wait years and years as this whole thing is rolled out. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Further questions? Councillor Elliott.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think part of the problem is when you look at the options, and you see the do nothing, and it's kind of push it off. I guess the most disconcerting thing to the BIA was when ACOM got awarded the tender to do the detailed design for downtown, Market Square and King George Park was omitted. It was originally included in the total design from the original consultants, and when we came down to awarding the contract to do the detailed design, Market Square and King George Park were eliminated. It wasn't part of it. And we kind of, as the BIA, took a step back and said, well, wait a minute. King George Park and the Market Square are fairly important to the downtown, and it's not included in this detailed design project. We're trying to keep it alive right now. I guess that's, to sum it up, is what we're looking at is it is important. We don't want it to go away. We want it to be included. We fully understand the scope and what the basic estimate cost. Ballpark generalization, like Dan said, it's 4 times the size of Main Street. It's going to be a chunk of change. But to the BIA as a whole, basic discussion has been of anything that's of major importance, it's the Market Square and King George Park to them. It seems to be an attractor to bring people downtown. If you can get them down to the park, to Market Square, obviously market days and Fridays are fantastic. If we can hold other events, it bodes well for the downtown, and I think that's the simple reason why they want this to be included. ACOM has not come back. We've had a couple of meetings with them. We've asked for some other things to come back in the streetscaping. They haven't got back to us yet. It's been a few months now. So I guess basically what we're asking for is to receive this report. Don't cast that area aside because it is very important to the downtown BIA. And we really want to work with staff to keep this alive and keep this on the table. So where we go from here, I guess, is going to be another conversation between the downtown CIP subcommittee and city staff and see what we can do for maybe to get something designed, maybe see if we can get some costs associated with it, and then we're just going to have to wait and see what happens with it budget time. And when ACOM comes back with the streetscaping, their design, and put a cost to that, and then see where we're going to start. But this was just to keep this alive, that it didn't get dismissed, because we do need the 2 parcels of land across the street here to become part of the CIP process.
Thank you, Councillor Elliott. Members of Council, further questions or comments? The report actually asks for both receipt of the recommendations and the information contained within the report, but it also asks for Council to provide direction on the design for Market Square. I think both Councillor Elliott and Councillor Steele have articulated the fact that they want to bring this onto the table, but primarily to then give a comparison to the bigger picture. Now, just for clarification, Dan, are we going to receive any costing with respect to the actual streetscaping?
Mr. Mayor, when the streetscape design was approved by Council, Market Square wasn't part of that. Council only directed the streetscaping to be done. So ACOM right now is doing the detailed design work for just the streetscaping. At the end of that, yeah, there'll be some cost estimates. It'll be up to what the tender amount comes back, whatever the construction costs are. In order for us to provide what a ballpark figure might be for Market Square, it needs to be designed and costed out.
No, I understand that. What I'm
Yes.
asking for is, are we going to have numbers attached to the streetscaping designs?
Yes, absolutely.
Yes, we are.
Through the design work that
Okay,
ACOM is
so
doing right now.
Thank you, Dan. So what I'm hearing here from councilors, Councilors Steele and Elliott, is to have some cost figures to then bring into that mix to then prioritize, in fact, what we want to move forward with first. We already have a recommendation from the BIA, but I'm sure they'd be interested in seeing those numbers as well. That's what we're asking for? Okay, so members of council, I think Councilor Steele is going down the right path in terms of trying to come up with a design to then come up with some numbers to attach to that. The only caveat that the only stick I'm going to throw in the mud here is that, quite frankly, staff does not have the time right now. And I know the BIA wants to sit down with staff to go through this and work with staff to put together a design on the cheap, so to speak. That's expensive, but unfortunately, our staff right now is consumed with a lot of the other projects that are going on. I know there's probably a more polite way to say this, but I can't find the words to be polite tonight with respect to this, because they are, in fact, very, very busy with the projects that we have underway. So I don't want to give any false hope here, and you know, say that we can all get around the table and do this. I would like to say that, but the reality is that it probably won't happen in the immediate future. Hence the reason why we're looking at bringing someone on board. Dan, I don't know if you want to give any comment added to that, but I think there's a reality attached to this that has to be understood by both council as well as the BIA.
Yes, absolutely, Mr. Mayor. Once we get the cost figures from ACOM, there'll be a report that council will have to consider. Part of the CIP process, it was going to be phased. Council then will have to make the determination how it wants to budget and at what phase and what areas in particular council wants to see. With respect to Market Square, you're absolutely correct, Mr. Mayor. We don't have the time to do it in-house, to do a design that actually would be ready for tender, for construction. Just don't have the opportunity to do that. And again, and hopefully it's something that maybe the BIA can consider and possibly get done, so that way council will have that figure for possible budget considerations in 2012 or however council wants to roll out this CIP process to be built.
Okay, thanks, Dan. So going back to your comment, Councillor Elliott, may I suggest that council receives the report for information purposes and then proceeds to sit down with the BIA to then work on recommendation number 2 to get at the budget, to get at least something in the budget with respect to the next steps we want to take, whether it's a consultant or whether it's bringing somebody on board that can actually get this done. Because unfortunately, if we delegate it to staff, it just won't get done for a period of time, and it probably won't make budget. So, Bob's whispering in my ear, it won't make budget. Mr. Talasi.
Through you to council, Mr. Mayor. I think Councillor Elliott's right in saying we were shocked that King George Park and the Market Square weren't part of the work that went to the consultant, which basically says we're going to do everything else, but we're not going to do anything there. And that flies in the face of the work that was done originally by the consultant. So we were under the impression that it was going to be part of what ACOM was asked to do. Why that didn't happen probably doesn't matter at this point. What we're trying to do is right a wrong here by trying to make council understand that we think King George Park and the Market Square is terribly important, that we know you're not going to have the money to do the whole project all at once. We know that the infrastructure work that needs to be done is going to be the major cost. I mean, we're going to tear up all the stuff that's underground, and I'm the last guy to be asking what that stuff is and how much it's going to cost. But if this is a $25 million project, our sense is that the facade improvement might be $100,000 or $200,000, and I know you've already had some money that you made available in the 2011 budget, and hopefully there will be some in the 2012 budget. We're thinking Market Square and King George Park might be, I don't know, 500,000 or $1 million. So if we think that's what's most important, and council can't see its way clear to spend the 20 or 25 million that's going to be done for the whole job. I mean, I don't need to remind you, Mr. Mayor, the first time you sat down with us, you wanted all the hydro buried on West Street, thought that would be a great idea. Well, I think some of the city staff got a little nervous when you mentioned that. So we want to be a part of the process, and we don't think it's smart to leave King George Park and Market Square totally out of the discussion, which is where it's going to go right now if we wait for cost estimates from ACOM.
Thank you, Mr. Talasi, and by the way, I still do.
We'd like it too, but it's got to be paid for.
Absolutely, and hence the reason why we want to enter in this, and as Councillor Steele said, with all the costs in front of us, so that way we don't try to have to go back.
Yeah, I think it's fair to say we don't have the expertise of the BIA
absolutely.
To come up with a design and costing. That's a project that if we tried to fund that, I mean, we have reserves now of about $20,000, but I'm guessing we would have to increase our taxation on our BIA members by a huge amount in order to consider paying for any of that work.
So therefore, may I suggest that we strike the last bullet in your presentation that says that, you know, we don't look at a consultant, that in fact councils consider looking at a consultant during budget as the report states, because otherwise it's going to be held back for quite some time. So I think, and I go back to Councillor Elliott because you're the mover of this recommendation, that we do exactly what the recommendation states. That in fact we look at providing direction to staff to include Market Square and King George Memorial Park to be funded subject to 2012 budget deliberations. And that way at least we know it'll get done. It won't be put by the wayside because of the other priorities that staff have underway currently. Councillor Elliott?
Yeah, you're right, Mr. Mayor. You know, I was kind of looking at it like, you know what, we'll take off number 2 because we don't know how to provide direction. We're not sure what direction to provide. And now I guess it's come full circle where it's back in again.
That's right.
Let's provide direction and let's you know, sit down. If we can get a consultant, sit down with BIA. Let's get some design work done. Get, you know, a cost estimate if we can for 2012 and see. Like I said, Gary's reinforced it that it is the most important thing to the downtown BIA going forward. So if we can include it in the 2012 budget process, better for us. So I would move the recommendation, and then we'll take it from there.
Okay, we do have a seconder. Is there any further comments or questions? Councillor Kenny?
Thank you, Your Worship. I think you asked Mr. Aquilina earlier, do you have the time right now? And he said no.
No, he said, if I can clarify.
Okay, is that not correct, Mr. Aquilina, that you,
said,
staff don't have the time?
If I can clarify, Councillor
Okay.
Kenny, what the question was referring to actually sitting down and designing this in-house. The motion doesn't ask for that. The motion actually asks for us to bring someone in subject to 2012 budget deliberations.
So I guess what we're hearing from the BIA, though, that their most important thing to them is the Market Square and King George Park. So do we just cancel that study that we've had for streetscape and say, take that money, forget doing the streetscape and everything, and just concentrate on that? And forget everything else that we've spent money on as a consultant to get, but now all of a sudden we're finding, well, they don't want that. They don't really want that. What they want is to spend that money right there. So are we forgetting all that, forgetting about everything else? Saying like, let's push that aside. Let's push the streetscape aside. Let's push that other programs all aside and just concentrate at the very beginning of this whole process on Market Square and King George Park. I guess, is that what I'm hearing?
Well,
that's all I want to know.
I don't want to. I think the answer is evident, but I'll let Mr. Thalasi answer the question.
Through you to Councillor Kenny, we thought, along with all the other work that AECOM's working on, that King George Park and Market Square would all be included. We were surprised that it wasn't. Now, I don't want you to think that we don't think the other work is important. Certainly the landscaping is important. We need the infrastructure work done. I mean, this stuff has to be replaced, the stuff that's underground. We have built, you know, basements that are filling up with water and backups and things like that. So I'm not trying to suggest that we don't want any of that stuff. We just think that on a priority basis, and maybe to fit in with the city's budgetary restraints, it might make more sense to proceed with the King George Park and Market Square work first. But that doesn't mean that we don't want the other stuff. And if we do nothing now, there'll be no progress made on King George Park and the Market Square because that's not part of what we've contracted AECOM to work on. So nothing is happening in that regard right now.
And just in fairness to the discussion here, I think what the BIA is asking for here is simply to add in the Market Square and King George Park into the overall design, detailed costing, etc., so that when council's making a decision, you can actually, you can choose to pick the low-hanging fruit and go after the more affordable, or you can go to the other. So, and I think that's what the motion is asking for, quite frankly. at the end of the day was to have all the information before us so that when the decision is made, it can give consideration to all of what the BIA is asking for, including King George Park and Market Square. Quite frankly, going to Councillor Kennedy's question, forgetting about, well, I think that's your call. That's Council's call. And that discussion has yet to be had. But the BIA is asking for at least the opportunity to have Market Square and King George Park included in that conversation, included in that debate. So that way, if in fact a member of council or members of council would choose to go in that direction, that in fact it would be there at least for consideration. Councillor Butters?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have a question. So to add King George Park and the Market Square to the work that ACOM is doing, there will be a cost attached to that. And can we have do we have any idea of what that will be?
As it will be in the 2012 budget deliberations. So that's what staff's asking for here. Staff is asking for the opportunity here, as it says in recommendation number 2, that council provide direction on the design of the Market Square parking area and King George Park to be funded subject to the 2012 budget deliberations. Dan?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. What is important is we need to know what Market Square is going to be in order for a design to be done and for a cost to be given. I haven't heard what council wants Market Square to be tonight. We can provide that to council. It's going to be something that has to happen quick in order for us to have a number to bring back for council in the 2012 budget. We actually had ACOM provide a rough estimate what the design work for Market Square King George Park would be based on the concepts, and the price tag I believe was around $200,000. But that was for everything. Is that what council wants? Everything. A stage, the whole bit that's under the CIP. We need that direction, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Steele?
Thank you, Your Worship. And that was given to us quite a while ago, right? Correct, Mr. Acklin? We understand that, and I think that it's not that staff or council ever forgot Market Square. I think that's a misnomer that's being used at the table here. The reason why we didn't bring it in is that it's only been 10 years, and it was actually a few years ago that we started this whole thing, that it is in good shape. It was redone a number of years ago, well, 10 years ago to this point, with concepts picked by the BIA the day. We sat at the back room and had all kinds of designs and boards and everything, and that was done. I don't think it was done that, but it was one of those where, well, you've already done it. We don't want to be ripping it up right away when, in reality, at the time, we felt there was more important things to be done in the downtown core. So it was one of those where we would do it, but at that time it wasn't a priority. So if it is a priority with some of the BIA, because I don't think it's a priority with all the BIA, because I'm getting calls on both sides of the fence here, on ones that want streetscaping and facade programs and things like that, so those things can get done. However, the BIA has a job to do, and unfortunately, like every BIA, not everybody attends and not everybody gives their opinion until tomorrow's paper comes out that they start calling us. So I think what Gary's done with the BIA and his subcommittee is good, is the fact that, you know, if you go to page 87, and actually also on page 85, you've got quite a few designs that were brought forward quite a while back, but he's already said they don't want all this stuff. So I think prior to that costing coming back, I think we need, as I said earlier, a concept from the BIA, what they'd like to see, whether they have somebody draw it up. I mean, I'm sure they have, as he said, they have some pretty competent people in the BIA. I think they can use that. It doesn't have to be architectural drawings. That gives the council and staff an idea of what they want, but a listing of priorities. So they can come out and say, look, we'd like to see this, this, and this done at this point. And then we can get a costing out, A, the design, and B, what it's going to cost to build. So I think that's the options that we have to look at here, is that allow them to come back to us. I mean, there's some pretty fancy stuff here. You know, if you look at the third drawing at the bottom of page 87, it's pretty neat, but I don't believe they want all that. So if they can come to us, well, yeah, they've got these, but I think they need to really detail these asks, not just in what they've given us here tonight. They have to really detail these asks. Give us a little bit of drawing. There must be somebody that they know within the 108 businesses that can help in this. Bring it forward. We can pass it on to staff, get the costing, and then we can make an informed decision during the budget time. So that's why I would say that. I do have one question, though, through you, Your Worship, to staff. Ron, as far as digging up the streets and putting in water, sewer, what areas are priority in the downtown? I mean, I know we, in front of Gary's office, we dug up a few years ago, but where are we talking about where we're going to be literally digging trenches and putting in new pipes.
Ron?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, the priority really isn't sewer and water. Most of that work's done. It's storm sewers. Drainage is a big issue, especially along Clarence Street. That's where we're getting the backups. We need to replace storm sewers all the way from West Street back through Elm Street and almost to Field. That's where the priorities are. That's the underground work. Most of the other work is streetscaping.
Councilor?
Thank you, Your Worship. Thank you, Ron. So in essence, when we go in and do the stormwater work, because obviously I know this street and a number of other streets have been done as far as the sanitary and the water go.
And storm.
And storm here, yes. Those are fairly quick builds for the storm, as opposed to sewer and water.
Mr. Hanson?
Yeah, through you, Mr. Mayor, along Clarence Street, it's pretty much a straight replacement of existing pipes. We need to do that initial design, determine that the sizes are correct, pipe materials are correct, and then go through and do that. And that'll be phase one of any work we do on Clarence Street, for instance. If that's where I identify the storm sewers to be replaced, that's the first phase, irregardless, because obviously you can't do any streetscaping without doing that. So that's phase one.
Go ahead.
Thank you, Worship. Thank you, Mr. Hanson. So in essence, councillors, if we can put a direction back to the BIA for what I've asked, I think it fits in with number 2 here, and then through you to Mr. Talasi, timeline, Gary, that your subcommittee can come back to us to give to staff for direction as far as going out and costing your design
Mr.
work.
Talasi?
Yes, for timeline?
Yeah.
Well, you tell me when I have to have it here for consideration in the 2012 budget.
Well, I mean, no, we can, no, I mean,
Well,
we are going through budget, but I mean.
If I may, Councilor,
Yeah.
we will be going, Gary, through budget from now until about February.
That's right.
So, you have that sort of timeline. We count on passing our budget by the end of February, March, around that timeline. So you have that time. But by all means, to get something back to
For
us.
concepts, but then staff has to get a price on it,
And that's
right?
what I was going to say, is if you can get us, it doesn't have to be anything elaborate, just some idea from this report in terms of what you're expecting to be in Market Square. That way we can go back to the consultants and feed it in and hopefully get some numbers out of it. We can have a ballpark figure within our 2012 budget would be ideal.
So do you want it before the Christmas break or right after the Christmas break?
Dan?
As soon as possible, Mr. Mayor. Sooner the better.
Right back at you, Gary.
All right, we'll shoot for mid-December. How's that?
Okay, Councilor.
Gives us a month.
As the mayor stated, I mean, this can be added to our budget deliberations, but again, we don't want to be here in the 12th hour with it either. So I think we're going to put some pressure on you, Gary, and your committee, that if you can bring it back to us within a month, it allows staff to bring that forward at least just after Christmas to when, we're kind of wrapping up the items of the budget. But I mean, as they say, it's usually around the 1st of March, so we can get it in there and obviously deliver this. So if I can make an amendment to the Councillor Elliott's original motion with regards to having the BIA come back to us within a month to allow staff to go ahead with that, with those design costs.
Actually, I'll consider that a friendly amendment. Is that fine? That's fine? Okay, that's fine. Okay, further questions or comments? Mr. Talasi, any questions or comments further? Clarification?
I just wanted to thank council for this open discussion because, I'm not sure it follows protocol or whatever, but I think, I like where this is headed as far as an end result because we felt like it wasn't going anywhere regarding King George Park and Market Square.
Okay, well, thank you, Gary. And we don't always follow protocol here. The clerk constantly kicks me, but that's fine. But at the end of the day, that's what it's all about. We want to get it done, and hopefully we did that this evening.
Thank you to all of you.
With everybody's interest in mind. So with that, Gary, thank you, and Mr. Porter, thank you as well for attending tonight. I know it's been a long night, and I appreciate your patience. Members of council, with no further questions or comments, as amended, the motion before you, all those in favor? Opposed? That will be carried. Thank you. Once again, thanks, guys. Would that be the Monday Night Football game? We'll now move on to item 2. Councillor Kenny.
Thank you, Your Worship. that the Department of Engineering and Operations Engineering Division Report Number 2011-48, subject request for speed limit reduction on Steele Street between Clarence and Kalali Street West be approved, recommending that the Council of the City of Port Colborne receives Report 2011-48 for information purposes, and no further action be taken to reduce speed limits on Steele Street at this time, and that staff notify the Niagara Regional Police of the speeding concerns at this location.
Thank you, Councillor Kenny. Do I have a seconder to that, please? Councillor Desmarais, questions or comments? Councillor Kenny.
Thank you once again. There's a couple, in the report, page 1 of the report, says the Highway Traffic Act's definition of a school does not include a post-secondary school educational institution. And while this is a post-secondary school institution, it also has attached to it a daycare, very active daycare in this area. And I'm more concerned with the people that are exiting that intersection from the Portal Village area, the 300, 400 Steele. They're always concerned that when we try to exit there and turn left, that the speed is too high and they can't get out. Maybe their reaction time is slower or whatever, but they're still having problems getting out of there. So if you cannot, Mr. Hanson, I'm glad you smiled a little bit, reduce that speed limit, can we get at least the lights synchronized at Kalali and Steele, and the ones at Clarence and Steele? So I think if they were all at the same time, right at the same time, and then I think people would have an easier time exiting there. That's just my personal opinion, because what happens is they're not, so that you get either getting traffic going north or you're getting traffic going south, and they have a hard time getting out of there. That's what they do. They have a hard time getting out of it. So I really would like to see the speed limit reduced. I've always thought that. I thought if the speed limit was reduced, then they'd have an easier chance getting out of there. You keep telling me that can't be done, even though there's a daycare there, early childhood education's all in that area. And like I said, we have the senior component on the opposite side of Steele Street. I think at least if you could synchronize the lights, I think that would help.
Mr.
Is that possible?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. I think the idea of synchronizing the lights are too far apart. I don't think the synchronization of the two sets of lights would really accomplish anything. They'd be changing. You still have large gaps. What we found with the Steele-Elgin intersection, there are, at most times of the day, fairly large gaps in the traffic that allow for those turns. Okay? And that's what the studies will show you. That's the reason, really, that the traffic lights aren't warranted. Both the volumes from the Elgin Street traffic are insufficient, and the first thing you see is there's large gaps throughout the day where people coming to the intersection can make that turn. As far as the report goes with the schools, it's common practice, it's not in the Highway Traffic Act, but it's common practice that speed limits aren't reduced from 50 or 60 down to the typical 40 school limit for secondary schools. You assume at that point that the students that are walking to those schools are teenagers or later teenagers, that they don't need the additional reduction in speeds. It doesn't really make the roads safer. As far as that being a nursery school or a daycare center, I mean, they're not walking to school. I mean, these are drop-offs. So the drop-offs at the school, and they have some parking areas there that they can drop off, so that is considered safe. They still have to come out to the Elgin-Steele intersection and make the turn, but again, you go back to the gaps in the traffic that are sufficient. And we talk about all the time, what these speed studies show is that when you artificially lower a speed limit below what the accepted rate of driving is, accepted speed of driving, people don't drive to that speed. You can lower it, if they're driving now at 50 to 55 on that road, if you lower it to 40, they will still drive at 50 to 55. And that's proven over and over again. So what it does is create a high non-compliance of speeds. So if you have 40 or 50% of the people driving on Steele Street now are driving above the speed limit, that's 40 or 50% non-compliance. If you make it 40, all you do is create a 70 or 80% non-compliance on the road. It doesn't make the road safer, and people don't drive to lower speeds. I mean, if you look at the example of Clowley Street East, it's the best example you can show. Other than those school areas, which need to be lower, to try to drive at 40 from Welland Street to Lorraine Road is almost impossible. You can see that that road is in fact not being used. There's very, very low volumes of traffic on those streets because the side streets, residential streets beside it, are 50. People are taking the side streets because the police are sitting there enforcing the 40 zone, which is impossible to drive at. And I'd hate to see, and that's what the report addressed, I hate to see that sort of thing on an important arterial road like Steel Street in Port Colborne. We have deliveries coming south to the hospital, to the downtown area, and so on. A lot of volume in there. To try to reduce that artificially to 40, it creates a lot of problems for traffic, and it really doesn't make the road safer.
Thank you, Mr. Hanson. Further comments or questions to the report? Councillor Steele.
Just to put some context into the minds around this table that are pre-metric. 40 kilometers an hour is 25 miles per hour. 50 kilometers an hour is only 31.5 miles per hour. It's not a huge difference. As Mr. Hanson says, I drive down Sugarloaf Street, which has a 50 and a 40 section, and the 40 section was there when the old CMT was there. You cannot drive 40 kilometers an hour. People speed. It's an enforcement issue if they're going too fast, but to slow them down, you're just going to get them driving faster. Sit at Sugarloaf Street at Homewood Avenue, nobody does 40 down there. They all do around the 50 kilometer an hour. You follow people all day long, and it is. If you go 40, they're right up your tail end, beeping their horn or flashing their lights. 50 kilometers is not fast. It's not. So it's an enforcement issue. Plus, in the Elgin Street area, it's an access issue. You got all those people going in and out. I've said this before. The problem with Steel Street from Sugarloaf and Clarence and all the way up is that you've got the whole west end of town funneling out one road. It's an access issue. That's the other problem. So you've created all these people funneling in. You've got one way to go to get to the north end of the Port Colborne or go to Welland, Wainfleet or whatever, unless you backtrack and go through Cement Plant Road. So, you know, those issues I think have to be looked at long before you start putting lights and lowering speeds. I think lowering speeds is going to make it even more dangerous. I really do. Drive long stretches. Clowley Street East is the worst to drive. That should be 60 once you get past the school. It's not even built up. There's houses, but it's not like built up like Bell Street is. My fellow councillor here says people are using Bell Street because it's faster to get down because it's 50 kilometers an hour. And they can go 50 as opposed to 40. So again, Your Worship, as you speak to the NRP, it's an enforcement issue. The other issue I'd like to see is Elgin Street made two ways. The problem is you're coming out, you've got two lines of traffic coming at you, turning both ways. If you have one line that has to wait, it's less of a wait time to turn, especially left coming out of the Portal Village area. So it would make a big difference. I think I've always thought that street should be two-way. Why it's one way? I mean, I understand way back in the 60s and 70s, but today Elgin Street should not be one way. It should be two-way traffic. So that should be an issue we should be looking at as a council, making Elgin two-way traffic. If I can dart across quicker than making a turn, it's a lot easier. So, thank you,
Councillor. Further questions or comments to the report? All those in favor? All those in favor? Opposed? That will be carried. Thank you. Next item, item 3, Councillor Bodner.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The Department of Engineering and Operations Engineering Division, report number 2011-49, subject request for speed limit reductions on Silver Bay Road, south of Highway 3, be approved, recommending the Council of the City of Port Colborne approve an amendment to bylaw 89-2000, being a bylaw regulating traffic and parking on street roads as follows. Silver Bay Road, 550 meters south of Highway 3, 1,390 meters south of Highway 3, 50 kilometers an hour. Silver Bay Road, 1,390 meters south of Highway 3, south to Lake Erie, 40 kilometers an hour. And further, that the reduced speed become effective upon installation of the regulatory signs, and that staff notify the Niagara Regional Police of the speeding concerns at this location.
Thank you, Councillor Bodner. Seconder, please. Councillor Butters, questions or comments? Councillor Bodner.
Thank you very much. I'm glad we just had this discussion on the last issue, because we're going to use some of that. I hope you're listening to Mr. Hanson on that. I will support in this recommendation the 40 kilometers an hour at the end of Silver Bay Road. But the reduction from 60 to 50 to get to 40, I think, is a useless exercise, because as stated before, people will drive how they feel that road is safe. And 60 kilometers an hour on that road, I believe, is more than safe. Every other side road, I believe, going to the lake is 60 kilometers an hour. The 40 at the end, where it narrows and dead ends and there's a lot of cottages and people are going to the beach, makes absolute sense. But I'd like to see that we eliminate the 50 kilometers an hour and stick with the 40 kilometers an hour. And can I ask, through you, Mr. Mayor, to Mr. Hanson, it said in the report, I believe, that Fire Lane 6, is that Locust Street, or is that Fire Lane 6 maybe, sorry, just past Locust Street, but Locust Street seems to be, and I know that was a fire lane, and then but all that's on it is Locust Street. That seems to be kind of a natural area where it starts to, you get a lot of those fire lanes off of there and more. Do you know if that is Fire Lane 6? Sorry, I should.
Mr. Hanson?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, no, Locust Street isn't fire lanes. If it has a fire lane designation, it's not a city street. So that fire lane pointed out in the residence letter seemed to be a fairly logical place to delineate the change in speeds.
Thank you, Mr. Hanson. So, Councillor, are you making an amendment to the motion to bring the 50 back up to 60?
Well, not to change it to 50, yes. Just
Not
to do
to
away
change
with
to
that.
50.
Yeah, it's
So
60 now.
leave it alone.
Leave 60 right down to the southern limits where it talks about making it 40 kilometers an hour. And I would assume that as you get to 40, there'll be a sign ahead of that saying that it's going to change to 40, so people aren't surprised there is that transition.
Okay. May I suggest, if Council supports Councillor Bodner's direction to leave the 50 to 60, to turn down this recommendation, and then we can come back with a new recommendation, so there's no confusion. Members of Council, any further questions or comments to this recommendation? Okay, to this recommendation, all those in favor? Opposed? So it would be defeated. Councillor Bodner, are you going to put forward a recommendation?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll put forward that Silver Bay Road, 1,390 meters south of Highway 3, south to Lake Erie, be changed to 40 kilometers an hour.
Okay. Councillor Butters, you're going to second that? Yes, I will. Are there any further questions or comments to that recommendation, members? All those in favor? Opposed? That would be carried. Just to let you know, that bylaw won't be in place until the following meeting, or the next meeting, because the clerk had counted on that being passed tonight, and that bylaw was prepared in that way. So, members of council, that bylaw will be, you'll notice that bylaw will be eliminated from the council agenda, and that will come forward at the next meeting of council. Okay? With that, members, we'll now move on to item 10. I'm sorry, item 9. Councillor Kenny?
Thank you, Your Worship. That the Department of Community Services report number 2011-29, subject Canal Days and Marine Heritage Festival, 211 post-event report be approved, recommending that council receives the 2011 Canal Days Marine Heritage final report.
And thank you, Councillor Kenny. Do I have a seconder to that, please? Councillor Bodner. Before I ask for questions or comments, I'm going to ask Mr. Sinez to go through the report and give us a quick rundown of what the report actually says. Mr. Sinez?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Actually, Mr. Makins and I will probably tag team on it. I'll look at the financial side of it and give you a quick review of that, and Gary will give you sort of the overview of the event as a whole. Essentially, from the financial aspect, as you know, the bottom line of the overall Canal Days event, we saw a shortfall of approximately $26,000. In actuality, when you look at the last 3 years, you're going to see that similar type of thing happening. And basically, the result of that is from on the revenue side. The revenues, as you know, are unpredictable due to the nature of the event. Expenses are all expended ahead of time, obviously, and so from the expenditure side of it, we do come in within budget. Obviously, it's the day or the weekend of the event that will determine how we make out the bottom line. And in this case, there was a few revenue items that we fell short on. One was on the sponsorship side. We were short about, I believe it was about $13,000. The other end of it, that revenues that we didn't meet again was the bar revenues was lower, and probably for a number of reasons, depending on the entertainment, depending on the crowds that are coming in, depends on also, you know, people just aren't consuming as they used to, which is a good thing too. We did have some positive points where revenues were higher in other areas. Revenues were higher in our vendor fees, and some of our expenditures were lower. We did purchase a number of different items through grants. We received a Canada or a which grant was the Ontario grant. So we did receive $75,000 in the Ontario grant, which was spent on a number of different things, including some capital items, a timer for the race, and that type of thing. So overall, when you look at the event, it was a successful event, and what we are looking for, and you'll see it come forward on the 2012 budget, because of the fact that it's been fairly consistent of what we're falling short on around the $25,000 mark. You're going to see that come forward in the 2012 budget, because I think if that's the consistency that we're seeing, we actually budget for the reality of the event. So you'll see that come forward in the 2012 budget. But again, overall, I think we've contributed. What the city does contribute is $35,000 in our annual budget as part of the levy, and we also, it's about $98,000 to $100,000 worth of staff time that goes into the overall event. Actually, it's probably a little bit more than that, but that's what's put into the budget, and staff do allocate their time to Canal Days for the time that they do spend. So it is very time consuming for staff, so staff put in a lot of time, a lot of and that's what makes the event work, because staff are committed to put in that time, and it shows. So it is part of our commitment to the overall event. And Mr. Makins could probably highlight some of the actual points of events throughout the weekend, and what were the highlights, and the good points, and what we did have that did come into the city that, you know, made the event successful.
Thank you, Peter. Mr. Makins?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Staff are quite pleased with the Canal Days of 2011. I think our general overall attendance may have been a little lower than the year before. We didn't quite see that we think the same effects of crowds. However, it's still very strong. Like we believe we're still close to the 300,000 mark that we've kind of benchmarked in the past number of years. Activities went very well. The Market Square was well attended. We did have we had a national touring act in this year that we had done in the past year, so that was kind of interesting. West Street was full. Again, you know, we want to talk about kind of our vendors and that was up. in further discussion, but we were very pleased with the H.H. Knoll. We were able to, it was very hectic, but we were able to get Stanley Cup in on the Saturday of Canal Day, so that was kind of exciting, but it added a lot more to our plate than we had planned on. But certainly brought us back into the park on Saturday afternoon, which is kind of neat. And then the Sunday is kind of one of those days that's always probably the busiest day of Canal Days, with the kite show and the car show, both phenomenal activities. And then it caps off with that Sunday night fireworks that's probably second to none, and really has become one of the signatures of the Canal Days event. As council probably hopefully have all seen the invite now, we are planning on having a strategic planning session for Canal Days on December 7th. It was something that was mentioned, I think, by the mayor in our last Canal Days meeting, is that these are the types of events that you really do have to take a look at them every kind of 5 to 7 years. And I think that's one of the things we really want to kind of get from council and committee. So it's, the full council and our Canal Days committee have been invited to December 7th. We have an expert coming in from Niagara College who does the event planning course at Niagara College, and she's been in event planning for over 25 years, a member of the Best Events Ontario Hall of Fame, or whatever. So really pleased to be able to get her at a very good price. And she's going to come in and help us walk through that. And I think that's going to really help us set that direction on what really is Canal Days all about, or what do we feel it should be. And that gives us some solid direction, and I think that'll help us when we get into the financials and the planning, because it all just kind of revolves around what do we really want to accomplish with Canal Days. What's the purpose of Canal Days? And then it really talks about, we'll be talking about our events, at the Market Square. What types of action we could do, that kind of stuff. We're talking about already. So that's going to be a fantastic opportunity to really kind of wrap our heads around what we want Canal Days to be. It is a fantastic event. It's one of the best events in Ontario. And that's great. And we want to keep it there. We want to see it grow. So I think that's a real great opportunity that hopefully as many members of council make it out that night. It'll be great. So looking forward to that.
Thank you, Mr. Makins. Mr. Sinez?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, just to add to that, a couple other items. One thing I did not mention was we do have, from the financial aspect, in-kind contributions of a number of different items from a number of different sponsors that we do have come forward to over $100,000. So that's over $100,000 of items that we don't have to pay for because we have such good relations with some of our sponsors that actually provide those services in kind. The other last thing was the grant, the $75,000 grant that we did receive also included an economic impact study, and that economic impact study was just received not too long ago, so that is going to be coming forward to council. It's at, I'm not sure exactly the timing of it will come, but it will come to council and the committee, so you can see what that what Canal Days, the impact it has economically on the city of Port Colborne.
Thank you, Mr. Sinez. Actually, I was hoping we would receive that economic impact study tonight with this report. It would have been beneficial because that, in fact, is the value of the money that we're spending. Okay, with no further comments from staff, I would appreciate the first commenter to stand up and ask her questions. Councillor Kenny, and then Councillor Butters.
Thank you, Your Worship. There were just a couple of things in the report, and if you could help me out. On page 71 of the report, there was a budgeted amount under expenses, Market Square, entertainment, and it had accommodations, and we budgeted 45, and it was exactly 4,500. Can you tell me what those accommodations are, and who are we accommodating?
Mr. Sinez.
Page 71, halfway down, under Market Square Entertainment, there is a thing, accommodations. In 2010, it was $4,511. We budgeted for 2011.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. The accommodations, we do provide some accommodations for some of I believe the ships that do come in. Some of the people that are staying in the ships, that they have some quarters that they can go to. And if I'm not mistaken, some of the is it the buskers? Or they have, but I believe it's mostly for the ships, for some of the captains and things like that.
It's the Ian Cotter.
Yes, and But we can also double check and make sure that that is all that's included in there. But I'm pretty sure that that's the majority of that.
Okay. And on that same page, under administration expenses, it has an economic impact assessment in the amount of $11,636. Who does that economic impact assessment?
Mr. Sinez?
Yes, through you, Mr. Mayor. It was a company called Enigma, from Toronto, and they came down and were here for the weekend and did the surveys of the customers, people that were at the event, and that was part of that cost was part of the grant money that we received.
Oh, okay.
Councilor?
Just two more questions. On page 77, Schedule 8 had ship expenses, and I noticed that the committee budgeted for the Empire Sandy $30,000 when the actual amount was almost $14,000 more than budgeted. I thought that was a lot of money, especially since the Empire Sandy's been with us since its inception of Canal Days. We should pretty well know what that cost is going to be, what that ship's expense is going to be. The previous years it was around the $40,000 mark. I just wondered why we would budget such a low amount, knowing that it always runs around that $40,000. It was $41,000 in 2009. It was $39,000 in 2010. So, and now this year was $43,000. So,
Mr. Sinez?
I think the budget figure should have been a little bit higher. The actuals were a little higher this year for two reasons. Twice we had to go into the locks when the weather was inclement, and we have to pay every time we go into the lock and pay for a personal order. So that our expense was a little bit higher there. And also last year, we also had the sponsors on the Empire Sandy last year. So some sponsorship dollars came in to help offset the cost of Sandy, whereas this year we had the sponsors on the Great Niagara. So that didn't go in here either. So that's kind of an adjustment of our budget. So we'll adjust that too.
Councilor?
And my final question, now I did all the expenses, but in the revenue, which is on page 67, I want to do the expenses first. It has the tips were donated to charity. Can you give us a dollar amount of how much money was collected on our little jars? And can you tell me where that money, what organization that money went to?
Mr. Sinez?
There's no amount listed. That's all I want to know. Thank you.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, that is the tips that is sitting out at the where our ticket takers are and all of that, and those I don't know what the exact amount was for the tips for that for this year. I could find that out for you and let council know, but I don't have that figure tonight. Do you remember where it went to? We'll have to get back to you on that one there as to where it was going to.
Yep.
Yep. Yep, we'll send that off to council.
Thank you, Councilor Kenny. Councilor Elliott?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you. Good report. I like the detail. I guess my focus was on the last paragraph above options and financial considerations on page 59. When you blend the 26,000 shortfall in revenue against the staff time for total city investment of $159,000, which obviously taxpayers pick up. It doesn't concern me that much because, yeah, we're investing in our city and we're getting people to come into town. I guess my biggest question is the 26,000 shortfall when the weekend was absolutely fantastic, weather-wise. I mean, we had sunshine, it was hot, and yet we missed our mark. I guess in post-Canal Days review, you could say we did this right, we did that wrong, we did this wrong. Is there anything through you to Gary that staff came up with that maybe they could put a finger on that was one big thing that they didn't count on that we missed the mark on?
Mr. Makins?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. I think the one that's most glaring is probably our bar sales. We were budgeting for $104,000 in bar sales, and we really brought in $74,000. So that's a huge decrease there. So That's probably, like I said, the biggest one. Again, as part of our, I think the next strategic planning session I was talking about is certainly that's where we're going to talk about opportunities for alternate revenues, because I don't think that, alcohol sales is going to, should drive it, and, that's not what we want to hang our hat on. So there are probably a few other areas, but again, that's great discussion that we need to have as a committee in the council. And then we're on board.
Thank you.
Thanks, Gary. Because I guess we all know when it gets out and people see that the $159,000 is what it costs us to run the event overall, they're going to wonder why. It would have been nice to have that exit survey here tonight to show what the economic impact is to our city. I guess I'll take a guess and I'll say if we get 300,000 people and everybody spends $20, there's $6 million that's coming into town. I would be interested to know if it was part of that that economic impact study, if we could break it out and find out exactly, or if they can even guesstimate, how much of that money stays in town, with most of the vendors being transient. A lot of that money is leaving town. I know that all of the businesses have an opportunity to get a piece of the pie and set up shop and put in an application to host a spot on West Street or downtown. I don't know how many take advantage of it, but it would be interesting to see if we could break out what actual revenue is spent in town with our local shops and what basically goes to the transient vendors. I don't know if we can split that out. It would be interesting to see that. And my last point, on the last page for the in-kind amounts, I looked at the bottom line and I went, wow, we get $210,000. And then quickly I went back up and I went, Shirks and Shores donated $112,500. And I think if you take a look at that, the decimal point's in the wrong spot. It should only be $11,250 instead of the $100,000. And I kind of went, oh, okay, we'll knock that down a little bit. So just for bookkeeping's sake, have a look at that.
Thank you, Councillor Elliott. Members of Council, any further comments or questions? Councillor Bodnar.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think it should be pointed out that certainly there is a Canal Days Committee. Councillor Elliott, myself, Angie sits on that, right? And we do take it pretty seriously, very seriously, about the bottom line. And of course, you're always guessing what comes down. I know this year we pushed to raise the rates for the vendors that are out there. In hindsight, that was a very good opportunity. We'd be talking about a little less, but there's a lot of people on that committee that put a lot of time in to really try to fine tune this and get it to, a break even, which is always our goal. But I'm glad we're having that strat plan. I think there's going to be some really good discussion there. That's that's going to spark some controversy maybe, and some some good thought processes moving forward. So look forward to that, and a lot of hard work is put in by that committee.
Thank you, Councillor. Mr. Howe.
Your Worship, if I can speak briefly to the Enigma report. You'll recall in the flavors last year, this same organization, Enigma, did a report. And that forms the basis for future financial assistance and advice and support from other levels of government. And you'll recall in the flavors, for example, about 15,000 people that they had recorded, and it actually brought in a little over $450,000 to the community. And this one's about 300,000. And the report should be here, and I didn't think it was going to be, we thought it wasn't going to be ready for this. And it's come in recent? Yesterday. Oh, it came in yesterday. So, and we had promised to get this report to council. What I'm going to do, because I know the Enigma report will speak about millions of dollars in spin-offs that come to the municipality as a result of a $150,000 investment. It is significant. And it is a scientific approach to determination of the kind of money that's spent. And it's beyond my science and my ability to understand it, but it is used mathematically and statistically in planning all over Ontario, as I understand it, and other parts all over North America. So the study itself is going to speak to people, speak to the number of people that were here and the kind of investment and the amount of money that comes into the community in one form or another, to the local businesses as well as to the vendors and to the citizens. And it is important, it is a very, very important component of the Canal Days in total. So now that we have the report, what we'll try and do is get it to you quickly so that you can review it. Perhaps if it's electronic, we can ship it to you, and we will bring it to, it'll probably be December 12th council meeting for further information to help support and provide you with background information which will be used during the budget process.
Thank you, Mr. Howell. Are there any further comments or questions? Just quickly, I just want to reemphasize the comments by Councillor Bodner. There's a great number of people that work in that back room there almost twice a month with respect to putting Canal Days together. The day after the event, those meetings start. Those people are in there really trying to find new ways and better ways of doing business with respect to Canal Days. Again, I was hoping that economic impact report would have been here before us today, because it once again would have validated the value of Canal Days with respect to the actual investment the taxpayers of the city of Port Colborne do in fact make. I'm looking forward to strategic planning, as I'm sure the whole committee is, as well as I'm sure members of council are, because once again, as much as $26,000 might not seem like a lot of money in a $600,000 budget, it is. And as easy as it may be to simply just add it into the next budget, I would sooner rather try to find it within the expenditure side, and that means spending less money to find that $26,000 versus just throwing money at the problem. It's a business, and at the end of the day, it has to be treated that way. And that's what we're hoping that strategic planning is going to actually resolve, is in fact not only trying to create more revenue, which is very hit and miss, because you don't know how people are going to react any particular year with respect to any event, especially with weather being a consideration within that event. But more so is the expense side, is to try and free up some of those dollars through less expenses. But again, I think council has to recognize, and for the most part the community has to recognize, that the value this event brings into the economy of Port Colborne. Just simply go down West Street and or Clarence Street or any business in Port Colborne and ask the merchants, ask the businesses how it benefits them. Of course, Bill, it may not benefit the insurance company, but and it may not benefit some other companies, but in fact I think we all can see it as an economic stimulus. And when you talk to our BIA and our Chamber of Commerce, they'll again validate that. So I look forward to that economic impact study. I think the math does speak for itself, but I more look forward to the strategic planning exercise that will give us the opportunity to really look at the business side of this event. So with that, members of council, no further questions or comments? All those in favor? Opposed? That will be carried. Thank you. Councillor Steele, item 15.
Thank you, Your Worship. This is with regard to Councillor Bodner's conflict. I'll move that the resolution received from the region of Niagara regarding support of Brock University's planned Cairns Family Health and Bioscience Research Complex Business Incubator, ICP Report 91-2011, in support of Brock University's government relations strategy to secure financial support from the senior levels of government for the proposed expansion of the business school be received and supported, and that all area municipalities be so advised.
Thank you, Councillor Steele. Who is seconder to that, please? Councillor Butters. Any questions or comments? All those in favor? Opposed? That will be carried. Thank you. That, members, will exhaust the items for discussion this evening. I'll now ask for any notices of motion. Councillor Demery.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. At our next council meeting on November 28th, I will be bringing forward a motion coming out of the work done by the Seniors Advisory Committee dealing with supportive home care and designated funding of such.
Thank you, Councillor. Any further notices of motion? With none, I'll ask for a motion to adjourn this portion of tonight's agenda. Councillor Kenny, Councillor Doucette, questions or comments? All in favor? Opposed? That will be carried. Now we'll start off with the council meeting. Madam Clerk, any addendum items?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. There's one item, the bylaw rising out of item 3 regarding the speed limit reduction on Silver Bay Road. That recommendation was amended, so the bylaw has been withdrawn and the remainder of the bylaws have been renumbered to suit.
Thank you, Ashley. Members of council, with that addendum in mind, move over to confirm the agenda, please. Councillor Bodner, Councillor Elliott. Are there any questions or comments? All those in favor? Opposed? That will be carried. Are there any disclosures of interest? Councillor Bodner.
Item 15, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Any further disclosures, members? With none, I do have one set of minutes here that we need adopted this evening. I need a mover and seconder for the minutes of the 39th meeting regular of council dated October 24th, 2011. Mover and seconder, please. Councillor Steele, Councillor Kenny. Any questions or comments? All those in favor? Opposed? That will be carried. Items requiring a separate discussion. Councillor Steele.
Thank you, Worship. Conflict for Councillor Bodner, item 15.
Thank you, Councillor. Any further items? We'll deal with that item first. Mover and seconder, please. Councillor Doucette, Councillor Kenny. Questions or comments? All in favor? Opposed? That will be carried. The remainder of the items, mover and seconder, please. Councillor Steele, Councillor Doucette. Questions or comments? All in favor? Opposed? That will be carried. I have two sets of minutes here from boards, commissions, and committees. First being the minutes of the Canal Days Advisory Committee meeting dated September 21st, 2011. And a second, the minutes of the Joint Board of Management Niagara Region Courts meeting of September 20th, 2011. Mover and seconder, please. Councillor Doucette, Councillor Butters, questions or comments? All in favor? Opposed? That will be carried. Are there any notices of motion? Councillor Desmarais.
Thank you. On November 28th, I will be bringing forward a motion from the Seniors Advisory Committee dealing with the designated funding for supportive home care.
Thank you, Councillor. Any further notices? With none, Madam Clerk, we might move on to the introduction of the bylaws.
That the following bylaws be read first, second, third time, and finally passed. Bylaw 5712-14311 being a bylaw to authorize entering into a bulk water sales agreement with Augustine's Bulk Water Services. Bylaw 5713-14411 being a bylaw to adopt John Spreet of Spreet Associates for the preparation of a new engineer's report for the repair and improvement of the Skelton Drain and the Browns Tap Drain situated in the city of Port Colborne. Bylaw 5714-14511 being a bylaw to authorize entering into an engineering agreement with Land Inc. for the completion of a detailed skate and BMX park design. Bylaw 5715-14611 being a bylaw to amend bylaw number 5503-110 being a bylaw to manage and regulate municipal parks.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Mover and seconder, please. Councillor Desmarais, Councillor Kenny. Questions or comments? All in favor? Opposed? That will be carried. Confirmatory bylaw.
That the following bylaw be read first, second, third time, and finally passed. Bylaw 5716-14711 being a bylaw to adopt, ratify, and confirm the proceedings of the Council of the Corporation of the City of Port Colborne at its regular meeting of Council on November 14, 2011.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Mover and seconder, please. Councillor Bodner, Councillor Elliott, questions or comments? All in favor? Opposed? That will be carried. Before I adjourn, our last three meetings of the year are on Wednesday, November 23rd, which is this coming Wednesday. No, I'm sorry, next Wednesday. Next Wednesday we have a special meeting of committee, the whole, which is a budget meeting, beginning here at 5:30 p.m. in the chamber, followed by November 28th, Committee of the Whole and Council, beginning at 6:30 p.m., once again here in the chamber. And the last meeting of the year is Monday, December 12th, 2011, once again Committee of the Whole and Council, 6:30 p.m. here in the chamber. I'll be looking for a motion to go into closed session to proceed in camera in order to address the following matters. A, the minutes of the closed session portion of the October 24th, 2011 council meeting. And secondly, a confidential planning and development report number 2011-81 regarding an Ontario Municipal Board appeal concerning the request for an extension of draft plan of subdivision approval from Todco pursuant to the Municipal Act 2001, subsection 239, 2E, litigation or potential litigation, including matters before administrative tribunals affecting the municipality or local board. Members, mover and seconder, please. Councillor Bodnar, Councillor Doucette, questions or comments? All those in favor? Opposed? That will be carried. We'll now go into closed session. Have a wonderful week.